Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, Central Ohio. We are your local election headquarters. I will be with you all night here in the NBC4i streaming studio. I'm Christine Barconi. I will be here from 8 until 11 p.m. and then picking back up at 11:30 until midnight, or as long as we have to go. I wanted to start this broadcast a little bit earlier than anticipated because we have so many results already coming in. But part of this digital show, we will have political analysts from both sides, from both parties, Democrats and Republicans, as well as all of our NBC4 anchors, as well as our reporters in the field. Speaking of which, let's get straight to NBC4's Adrienne Robbins. She's at the State House for us this evening. Adrienne, how are things going? I know you've been in contact with Secretary of State Frank LaRose today. What's going on there?
Well, Christine, we've gotten a couple updates from Secretary of State Frank LaRose. Earlier today, he said that the election was going smoothly despite some of the bumps in the roads we've had. We've been reporting all afternoon on some of the technical difficulties and the longer lines people have been seeing. But now, obviously, the polls are closed and it's getting time to start tabulating those ballots. Like you said, we're beginning to see some of those initial results. And as the Secretary of State has said all along, it will be those absentee and early ballots that we first see here. And that's clearly reflected in the results we're seeing so far in Ohio. But like you said, too, it's going to be a late night and it's still a long night before we can tell anything concrete about which color Ohio will be going.
Absolutely. Adrienne, you spoke to Secretary of State earlier today at 2 o'clock. He spoke to all reporters, and then Colleen spoke with him a little bit earlier. We've seen a lot of elected officials on the national news today. Governor DeWine was on MSNBC earlier today. Have there been any lawmakers in and out of the State House, or are they like out and about, in their districts this evening?
Yeah, Christine, it's pretty empty here at the State House. It could be seen as a little bit eerie at this time, but that's pretty normal. You know, those state senators and obviously representatives, especially who are up for re-election, normally spend this time closer to their district and try to spend as much time as they can close to their district leading up until then. But I can assure you that in the next couple of weeks, they will be returning here to the State House for the lame duck session. And I've heard it should be an interesting time from now until January.
Adrienne, you're covering Ohio on a national level for our partners at News Nation this evening as well. What are some of the things that they are expecting out of Ohio? What are some of the questions that they are asking as Ohio is on this national stage tonight as a swing state traditionally?
Yeah, Ohio is really in an odd place this election. We're obviously used to being that battleground, that swing state that everyone is paying attention to. And people are paying attention to Ohio this year, but at a much smaller scale. They're really talking about states like Pennsylvania, like Florida and Michigan. But the thing about Ohio this year is, as we've said over and over again, as goes Ohio, so goes the nation. And that may be true. Ohio has picked the presidential winner since all the way back in the 1960s. But the one thing that people have been saying over and over again is Joe Biden does not need Ohio. President Donald Trump does. There's no path to the White House, at least in general, for Donald Trump without it coming through Ohio. Mathematically, yes, but most likely no. So Republicans are keeping a close eye on the state today.
All right, Adrienne, thank you so much. I know you'll be with us throughout the evening. We really appreciate your reports there at the State House. Thank you very much. All right, everybody, let's actually take a look right now at your local election headquarters. This is NBC4i.com slash YLEH, or you can just go to NBC4i.com and we've got it pinned to our homepage. I'll actually show you that right now. So if you go to the NBC4 homepage, you can see we've got a lot of stories here. There's our broadcast right now. But if you go right here, these two stories will get you what you want to see. Right here, 2020 Ohio general and presidential election results. You can go here right now. You can see the Electoral College, how that is going. Joe Biden with 85 so far, President Donald Trump with 55. And you can see the Ohio map and how things are going there. You can hover over and see Franklin County here. Joe Biden with 76% of the votes. That is the early and absentee voting totals at this point. Donald Trump with around 23%. And then you can see Delaware County, closer race there as far as the early and absentee ballots go, going about 54% for former Vice President Biden and 45% for President Donald Trump. You can see really clusters of blue and red across the states as those early and absentee ballots come in. Polls closed a half hour ago. Of course, if people were in line at 7:30, they are still able to vote. So that's what's going on here. If you scroll down a little bit further here, you can type in, use this search feature. If you are looking for a specific race, you can go here, type that in right here. Again, presidential. As far as Ohio goes, right now the total is 61% Joe Biden and 38% Donald Trump. Those are those early and absentee ballots in these states that you can see lit up on the Ohio map. Scroll down a little bit further and you can see the Ohio U.S. House districts. They are in order by district, so you can see 1, southwest corner, 2 as well, District 3, and all the way down. We're taking a look at Central Ohio District 3, already called by the Associated Press for Joyce Beatty here. Kind of a landslide, Franklin County voters here with 79% of the votes. She wins handily over Mark Richardson, the Republican. District 4 here, Jim Jordan's seat. You can see a little bit closer, but Jim Jordan has about just over 51% of the votes right now. Democrat Shannon Freshour with 46%, and then the Libertarian Steve Perkins with just over 2% of the votes here. House District 5, Bob Latta, already been called for him by the Associated Press. District 3, District 6, which is around the Ohio River Valley, Bill Johnson already called for him, the Republican, over Shauna Roberts. District 7, Northeastern Ohio, already called for Republican Bob Gibbs. 8, Southwest Ohio, looks like Warren Davidson has 69% of the votes over Vanessa Enoch with 31%. Can go down. You can see 9, just looking for the Central Ohio ones right now. That would interest Central Ohio Columbus viewers. Looks like in District 12, Ohio House District 12, which is the northern Columbus suburbs, Elena Shearer has 53, just over 52% of the votes at this point over the incumbent Troy Balderson. He has 45% of the votes. Jon Stewart, the Libertarian, there with just over 2% of the votes as well. Youngstown, Tim Ryan, the incumbent, the Democrat, looks like it's been called by the AP. He wins handily as well. Scrolling down, Steve Stivers' district, District 15, central south of Columbus, suburbs such as Upper Arlington and that area. Joel Newberry, he is in the lead with those early votes coming in with 52% over Stivers' 48%. But again, 0% reporting. Those are just the early and absentee ballots at this point. 16, and then we've got the Ohio Supreme Court. I won't go through all of these, but if you want to go to NBC4i.com and click on that page, you can see that as well. Let me go to our Facebook comments as well and see if you guys would like me to check out any specific races. I will be monitoring these comments all evening long, so if you would like me to take a look at any specific ones, I can do that for you. Reading the comments right now, not seeing any questions, but we do appreciate you being with us this evening. Coming up here in just a few minutes, Colleen Marshall is going to be joining us, and we're going to be talking to some of our political experts here that we are enlisting this evening. Let's go through some of these races again, and as well, you can see there at the bottom of your screen that we have every single race running there, so that you can read the ticker as the results trickle in as well. This is something else that we are watching right now. It is the establishment of the Civilian Review Board here in Columbus. It's a charter amendment. It looks like with the early and absentee ballots right now, it looks like so far there is a overwhelming yes for that, with nearly 80% of people voting yes for that. Let me get our political pundits pulled up and we can have a discussion with these guys. First up, we have Derek Clay and Mark Weaver. So let's get them pulled up here. All right, so it looks like our political pundits are still getting ready. Mark Weaver is ready, but we are still waiting here for our other one right now. Looks like Colleen Marshall is going to come over and join us really quickly. Colleen, if you want to grab that mic, if you don't mind. I'm sorry, I forgot to bring it over to you.
I got it.
Awesome. So Colleen's going to join us, guys. She gets situated.
Do I have an IFB?
You do, but there's nothing really to listen to. You're just listening to me. My wonderful voice. Right now, you guys, we've got some full screens running up on the screen right now. These are live results coming in. This is the establishment of the Civilian Review Board, a Columbus Charter Amendment. So far, overwhelmingly people voting yes, about 80%. We'll scroll through some of these. Some more here is District 15, Joel Newby versus Steve Stivers as well. So, Colleen, you ready?
Yeah, it's interesting to see how that vote is coming down on the Civilian Review Board, because we saw a split really in the leadership here. Mayor Ginther has been pushing very hard for this, as has the council president, Shannon Hardin. But the FOP are just not sure that this is the way to go, partly because, as they've been trying to tell people, we don't know what this means. Will they have subpoena power? Who gets to appoint them? How long are they appointed for? Who pays for the processes? There are so many unanswered questions about that. But it is clear that the citizens of Columbus, at least what we're seeing in the early voting, think it's a good idea, Christine.
I'm kind of shocked a little bit also by how overwhelmingly I assumed that it would pass, but I did not think that that it would be by this wide of a margin.
Yeah, that's a pretty big. That's much bigger than the police certainly expected. But the mayor is going to be celebrating that. This is one of the initiatives he's been pushing. He says it's the first step in police reform for the city. And of course, it follows a summer of violence here and around the country, with a lot of people saying there's time for change.
Certainly. Colleen, while you guys were in the 7 p.m. newscast, we had a lot of breaking news really going on. Kind of run down that with us and what you guys were seeing during the 7 o'clock show. You guys were on the air as the polls closed and as those early numbers were coming in.
Well, the numbers that came in are not surprising for the most part. I mean, Indiana went to Donald Trump. If it hadn't gone to Donald Trump, that would have been shocking. Right. It's been red for a very long time. And of course, that's the home of Vice President Mike Pence. But we also saw Virginia, which was a state that was considered to be in play, going, it seems, toward Joe Biden, at least at this hour. What's really interesting right now is what's happening in Florida. The votes there, they did a lot of early counting, so they know already Miami-Dade County, for example, that was considered to be so important for Joe Biden. It went for Joe Biden, but at about 10 points less than that heavily Cuban county went for Hillary Clinton 4 years ago. The Panhandle, which is an hour behind the rest of the state in the time zone, they're just counting, but that's considered to be securely Trump country. So I think, I mean, I'm just following what I'm hearing, but it looks like Florida will probably stay for the president. It was a very important state for Donald Trump.
Certainly, as is Ohio. Adrian was mentioning it earlier. Something that we noticed while we were still on the air, and Brad was bringing to us that AP map with the county by county breakdown. Yeah. Delaware County, it looked like it went blue quite early. And, I think we discussed this before, Colleen, and previously. A lot of people that I, grew up with and went to college, they are moving to Delaware County, and kind of
demographics are shifting.
Certainly,
right? You're right. There are more young people like you moving into Delaware County. It's always traditionally been pretty heavily Republican, but these early numbers in Ohio, what we've got to remember is the early numbers. They're counting first all the people who showed up in person for early voting and got their vote in early. Those ballots are being counted first. It's believed that Democrats were more likely to show up and vote early, Republicans more likely to wait until today on election day and vote. So we can't take too much one way or the other by the early numbers, but it's going to be interesting to watch how it unfolds here in Ohio through the night.
Absolutely. And what is it? It was 3.4 million Ohioans have
Yes.
already voted. So it was probably the largest dump of numbers that we've
Yeah.
ever seen at that early of a time. Secretary LaRose was touting earlier today that we had either for the first time in a while or for the first time ever, we had more than 8 million registered voters here in Ohio.
Yeah, a lot of votes to count. That's why he said, pack your patience here in Ohio, because they're planning to do this until they count what he said, every validly cast vote. And people need to understand too, Christine, that, he's saying that the final vote, the absolute final certified vote, will be a couple of weeks away, but it's always that way. They always wait until those overseas soldiers' votes come in and the people who are voting absentee, that they're all counted. Usually there are trends that we can tell. Enough on election day, though, to declare a winner in Ohio. Don't know if that's going to happen here tonight. It'll be interesting to see. I think it's going to be a long night here in Ohio. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 2, 3 o'clock in the morning before they kind of wrap it up for the night. And even then, I'm not sure we'll know a winner here. We know we won't know the winner in Pennsylvania. 7 counties there won't even count those early votings. They start the count tomorrow morning.
Oh my goodness.
So if it's very tight, if there's a very, around the country, we just can't tell who the winner is, and Pennsylvania is still out, we may not know this for several days.
All right, Colleen, thank you so much for being with us. I know you have a very busy evening.
We're going to be on the air doing a cut-in here at about 8:26.
8:26 and so 26 and 56 on the hours when we will do our cut-in. So I want to bring in right now our...
Thanks, Christine.
Yeah, thanks, Colleen. Our first hour of political analyst. We have Mark Weaver and Derek Clay coming in for us right now. Let's get these guys up here. Good evening, gentlemen. Hope you are doing well. All right, first dump of numbers here. What do you think?
Well, Christine, while you were talking, Florida was called for Trump. I didn't want to interrupt while you were
checking. I appreciate it. Thank you for that breaking news.
That's just Florida. There's lots of other states that are out there.
It's a very important state, though.
Ohio's going to be a much longer wait, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Even though Florida has been called for Trump, there's many more paths for Joe Biden to win the presidency. Ohio is, as Mark said, is a little too close to call at this point, but we're seeing some very good trends up in Delaware County. Delaware County right now is blue for Trump with over 70% of the vote in. So we'll see how the night goes.
What else are you guys paying attention to across the state this evening, as far as U.S. congressional districts as well as state house races? What's top on your minds this evening?
Well, there's some indication that some of the election day turnout in Cleveland was a little light. Now, they did have a good, strong early vote up in the Cleveland, Northeast Ohio area, but the actual day of voting was very light. And traditionally in Ohio, in order for the Democrats to overcome some of the strength of the Republican Party in the western part of the state and the central part of the state and now in the eastern part of the state, you really have to have a really big Democrat number coming out of Cuyahoga County. And so, again, no conclusion, but it's worth keeping an eye out to see whether they get the big numbers they need in Cuyahoga County to offset traditional Republican areas around Ohio.
Derek, what are you paying attention to this evening?
Again, I'm looking at some of the suburban communities. You really want to look at Delaware County again. Delaware County is one of those counties that's really been trending Democrat here tonight. So, even with that race, when you got about 54% of the vote in, 54% for Joe Biden, 44% for Trump, and you got about 72% of the vote that's tallied already, that could be telling for Ohio. And of course, if Ohio goes blue, then we got to be looking at the Ohio Supreme Court races as well, in which we, predict the victory for the Ohio Supreme Court as well with Jennifer Brunner and John O'Donnell up in the Cleveland area.
Do you think Delaware going blue will have an impact on the District 12 race right now? Of course, those early votes were showing Shearer over Balderson. Of course, a very small sampling of that, but do you think it will impact it this evening?
Absolutely. Congressman Balderson absolutely has to have a good showing in Delaware County to pull out this race. And right now, you know, with things trending for Vice President Biden in Delaware County, he could be in trouble.
What do you think, Mark?
I don't think so. I think Troy Balderson gets reelected. It might be closer than any of us in the Republican Party would like, but I think the latter numbers that will come out in Delaware County will even it out. There's no doubt there's going to be, it will not be a traditional Republican year with the big numbers in Delaware County, but I would say this, as I'm looking around Ohio right now, I'm seeing some real energy and people reporting really strong turnout in these rural areas where Trump is so strong. And now it may take a while for us to get all of the votes out of some of those far-flung counties, but when we do, I think that's going to resound well for the president.
What did you think of the vice president being here yesterday, and then Doug Emhoff? I believe I said his last name correctly. He was here today as well, but we have not seen anybody from President Trump's campaign or his close circle. What was your read on that, Mark and Derek?
Well, you know what that told me, Christine, is that, you know, the president has to go to some other states to pick up some ground, and that Ohio is really too close to call for him, or he might even be losing in this state. You know, the mere fact that you had the vice president of the former vice president going up to the Cleveland area was just to shore up the base, make sure that the Democrats that are going to be coming out to support the Biden-Harris ticket are strong. You had the husband of Senator Kamala Harris here, Doug Emhoff, here in the capital city today, campaigning for his wife and the Biden-Harris ticket. So I think, like I said, the Northeast Ohio is a traditionally has been a Democratic stronghold, and the vice president just wanted to make sure that he's shoring up his vote and support up in that area of the state.
Mark, what do you think?
Well, I say this, you want a little insider tip because only the special people have tuned in to watch us on the digital feed at WCMH, so they're going to get a special insider tip.
I want to hear it.
Somebody who Derek and I know well, Bob Paduchik, was President Trump's campaign manager here in Ohio in 2016. He's a central Ohio resident. And so he has been in Ohio for most of the campaign. 10 days ago, they said to him, Ohio Square, go to Pennsylvania. That's where the fight's going to be. So we're going to look back on that as either a brilliant move because they really were correct that Ohio was okay and it was okay to send Bob over to Pennsylvania, or we're going to wish they'd kept our friend Bob here working a little harder. But I really do think that Trump's going to win Ohio and that we're going to be talking about Pennsylvania here for the next few hours.
Was that Bob who we saw? He did the RNC. Was he?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So that was Bob. All right, guys. Just one more quick question for you. So, what are we want to go to a more local level. Do you expect any surprises out of the state house races? Any seats being flipped there?
You know, I think one of the races that people are paying particular attention to is the Stephanie Kunze race and the Crystal Lett Senate race. You know, many sources have told me that Crystal Lett is doing very well in that race, and that she's actually going to win that race. So, you know, we will see what happens as we move forward in the evening. But as I understand right now, Crystal Lett has a pretty substantial lead over Stephanie Kunze.
All right, Jen. What do you think, Mark? Sorry.
I'm looking at the Mehek Cook Beth Liston race, the state rep race up in Northwest Franklin County. Mehek Cook has been really working very hard, knocking a lot of doors, running circles around her opponent. Keep your eye on that race. That'll be an interesting one to watch.
All right, guys. Hey, thank you so much for being with us this evening. Coming up, I know you'll be with us several times throughout the night. I think you, when are you guys scheduled for the broadcast side of things? Or did Colleen already have your crack at you?
I don't know, but we'll be back if you need us. Derek and I are always ready to talk, aren't we, Derek?
Awesome.
That's right.
I really appreciate it. Thanks, gentlemen. I really appreciate it.
I actually happen to like Mark.
That's right. See you, my friend.
I can tell. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.
All right, guys, that was Mark Weaver and Derek Clay. Always appreciate them being with us. Want to thank them as well. Let's go back to some results and see if we have anything going on here. All right, let me pull it up. All right, let's refresh NBC4i.com and then we will take a look. Again, remember, I am monitoring our Facebook comments all night. So if you guys have any legitimate questions or any specific races that you would like to see, I will, of course, scroll to them. Let's go back up to the top and see if we have any more states being called by the AP. Looks like we have about the same. But look at this Ohio map right here that we have. Looks like more counties are starting to fill in. You can see up near the Cleveland area, Youngstown area as well, Columbus, Toledo, Cincinnati area. Pretty typical states going blue here. If you want to take a look at the overall race here in Ohio, Joe Biden still has that lead with 5% of precincts reporting. He has just over 55% of the vote here. Donald Trump with 43%, of course, with a very small portion reporting just 5% at this point. We can see some states still not showing any, some counties still not showing any precincts reporting yet, but we do have the majority of Ohio counties showing at least some numbers. Let me scroll down here just a little bit more. We can take a look at these U.S. House races here. Already called for Beatty. That happened. Jim Jordan looks like he has a handy lead there in his district for 58% of the votes versus 40% over his Democratic opponent, Shannon Freshour. Bob Latta, that race is called for him. Bill Johnson called for him. Bob Gibbs called for him. District 8 in the Southwest, the Republican leading handily with about 60% of the votes there. Keep going here. Like I said, we were talking about that Delaware County as well as northern Franklin County suburbs here. Elena Shear with 50% of the vote. Troy Balderson, the incumbent, with just over 47%. And the Libertarian Jon Stewart has over 2% as well. Let me scroll through some of these full screens for you guys while we get reset.
Those will count.
Well, of course, NBC4 is your local election headquarters. Stay with us on air and online at NBC4i.com. We have live digital coverage with digital anchor Christine Varconi.
And she is sharing the most up-to-date election results. For now, we're going to be back in 30 minutes. We're keeping an eye on local races, of course, that important issue 2 here in Central Ohio. We're going to have updates for you all throughout the night.
All right, back here on NBC4i.com, here in the streaming center, you heard Darlene and Carrie talking about NBC4 being i.com being your local election headquarters. If it is on the ballot, it is on our website. If you are watching here on NBC4i.com, scroll down. The results are right there. And if you are watching on social media, click the link either above or below, and that's where you can see those as well. They are also scrolling this entire broadcast there at the bottom of your screen. Let's see who we have next up here in our broadcast. We're going to be talking to Matt Herchik. Let's get him on the phone. I know he has been following the Beatty race, so we will get those results up. It's already been called for her in District 3, but let's call in and get Matt on the line. Ready, sir? All right, stand by, Matt. All right, guys, we have our new NBC reporter, Matt Herchick, ready to go for us. He is standing by in beautiful downtown Columbus right now. Hey, Matt, how is election night going for you?
It couldn't be going better. It's a beautiful fall evening here in downtown Columbus, Christine, and of course my first night on air here with NBC4. So quite the night to get things broken into here.
All right, tell us about the races you are following this evening, Matt, and what you would have been doing all day as far as election coverage goes.
Yeah, so we've, of course, been following the Joyce Beatty-Mark Richardson race for that 3rd District seat in the U.S. House. And, of course, the Associated Press called that race a little less than an hour ago, Christine. I think over 79% of the votes that have come in, close to 180,000 votes already counted, and again, close to 80% of those have already gone to Joyce Beatty. So the Associated Press has called that race. We had a chance to see her earlier today. She was at a Get Out and Vote event with Kamala Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff, earlier today. She was thanking voters for their support. Of course, a lot of optimism in their camp. She's been holding that seat since 2013. This will be her 4th term now, of course, with that race being called. So a lot of optimism. She's very close to Nancy Pelosi in Washington. She's been outspoken over the past several months about social justice issues, social reform, police reform, and of course, coming into Election Day, voter suppression was a hot topic for her as well. So she's been, again, out on the trail and will take that seat for the 4th consecutive term now.
Hey, Matt, why was it important? Did you get a chance to ask why was it important for Doug Emhoff to be here in Columbus? That was released around 2 o'clock yesterday that he would be here. Why did he say that he was here in Columbus today?
Yeah, sure. He actually said that he was supposed to be here, I believe, last week, and for whatever reason, it didn't work out. But he said he was very excited to get to Ohio today. This, of course, is a very important state in an election year. Any year, of course, the saying is, as Ohio goes, so does the election. The winner of the presidential race has won every race since 1964. So it was very important for him to come here today to encourage voters to get out and vote. The Ohio Democratic Party Chair David Pepper was also here today, and he said that going into the day, the presidential race was about a dead even race right now. And he said that those last remaining votes, those last few voters that maybe hadn't gotten out to the polls yet, were going to be very crucial in their attempts to, of course, turn the state of Ohio blue in this election after President Trump won it in 2016. So he got out here today. He talked about President Trump's handling of the coronavirus. He called it a, quote, epic failure. He talked about the Biden-Harris campaign's plans for the coronavirus. He said they want to get free and quick testing for people, as well as free treatment for those who need it. He said that they are going to trust science, something he said he hasn't felt the president has done, and they're going to continue to trust Dr. Fauci as well. So he has, again, spoken out about the Trump administration's handling of the pandemic, and it was important for them to get out here to Ohio today and try to swing that state in this election tonight. You know, so what's funny is I started at my first station actually in Zanesville, Ohio, Christine, and I started in February just after the inauguration in 2016. So I didn't even get a chance to cover that election. I have covered several elections, not a primary election, of course, but for the past 2+ years, I was in Greenville in New Bern, North Carolina, working as a reporter and weekend anchor there. It was much warmer in North Carolina, I must say, before I came back here to Columbus. So quite an adjustment, but certainly happy to be home. I'm originally from Dublin, Ohio, and yeah, I grew up here in Columbus. I went to Bishop Watterson High School and went to Ohio University. So I spent much of my time here in Ohio, and it's certainly wonderful to be back.
We are happy to have you, Matt, and we really threw you into the ringer here with your very first presidential election, but you're doing really great.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I was trying to figure out which live shot number this was, but we've got a couple more as we continue to follow races, and of course the presidential race tonight. So it should be an exciting few hours still to go. Thanks, Christine.
Yeah, we are all news all the time. That is certainly something we are not lacking here, and we will definitely be hearing from you throughout the evening, and I'm sure on 11 o'clock as well. We really do appreciate it. So thank you very much, and we will we'll check back in with you later. All right.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon. Thanks so much.
All right, guys. Up next, excuse me, we have Eric Halpern, who is covering the Republicans tonight. I believe he is covering the Steve Stivers race. Let's get in touch with Eric here. I don't know if you know this, but I'm let's call Eric and see what he is up to. So let me get this Stivers full screen up for you right now. That race right now versus Joel Newby, and then we will get in touch with Eric. All right, guys, like I said, we have Eric Halpern, who is at the statewide Republican Watch Party in Westerville. Eric, tell us about the races you are covering this evening and what you are seeing there so far.
Well, first, Christine, I want to set the scene here for you at the Renaissance Hotel in Westerville. A lot different than what we're used to seeing for these election night watch parties. The press is in one room here at the Renaissance, and throughout a bunch of different ballrooms here, various members of the Republican Party are gathering to watch the results come in. As soon as the polls closed here in Ohio, Chairman Jane Timken came in, thanked the supporters, didn't have much to say besides that. It was just a very brief update, and said that she feels really good about where Ohio is, and she feels like the Republicans are going to have a good night in Ohio. She said she was cautiously optimistic that the president will take Ohio. One of the races that we are keeping an eye on, and the last time I checked the numbers there, was that congressional district race, the 15th district between incumbent Steve Stivers, who has held that seat since 2011, and challenger Joel Newby. Newby has been saying that it is time for a change. Stivers said that his experience and that he has a bipartisan record, and that's why he should stay in that seat. So that's one we're also following here tonight. Stivers was up the last time I checked.
Yes, Newby got off to kind of an early lead with those absentee votes, but as the numbers have been rolling in, Stivers has taken that lead as the incumbent. So you mentioned Jane Timken is there. What other state Republicans are there this evening? I know you're not in the room, but in the next room.
Well, and that's actually an interesting point there. So you say, not being in the room, and sometimes on these election nights, when you're in the room, you can sort of have a feel for how things are going, but because there aren't typical parties this year, you're not really having that feel. Right now, we've only heard from Timken. I have seen Attorney General Dave Yost around, but other than that, we haven't seen too many people at this point.
All right. Hey, thank you so much. We are going to be watching all evening. Eric, make sure you tune back in if anything exciting does happen there. And of course, definitely an interesting scene that we have. Definitely not what we are used to from years past. So we appreciate you being out there and covering for us this evening, Eric. All right, coming up next, we're going to be talking to Sean Lanier, who is in downtown Columbus this evening. Let's get in touch with Sean. Sean, can you hear me? Sean Lanier, can you hear me? I can see you, but can you hear me?
Hear me, Christine?
I got you, Sean. Hey, Sean, what's going on in downtown Columbus? I see something over your shoulder there. Can you set the scene for us?
Pretty much what you're looking at back here is essentially CPD. They are just blocking off this section of Marconi Boulevard just as a precaution. What they're doing is basically getting ready in case anything happens tonight. They want to make sure that their entrances are free so they can get to whatever part of the city in case there's any unrest in relation to this election. This is all just precautionary. Nothing's really happening back here other than them blocking off this street to allow them to get out to where they need to go in case of any unrest happening here in the downtown area or anywhere in Columbus.
Well, tell us about this charter amendment that you will be watching this evening. Tell us what it is about and how people are voting this evening.
Well, you know, the charter amendment, or what it is, issue 2 is a charter amendment to essentially lay the groundwork for the Civilian Review Board, which will give an independent group of selected individuals the opportunity to review police misconduct. We all remember over the summer there was a lot of protesting, asking for police reform, asking for this Civilian Review Board, just to make sure that we can hold police officers accountable and also just have some type of transparency with the investigations into police misconduct. So what city elected officials here, Mayor Ginther and a lot of others, said that they wanted to put this to the vote to put it in the city charter so that this could be ongoing moving forward in Columbus history, but there's still a lot of details that need to be ironed out and agreed upon with the Fraternal Order of Police here in Columbus. So even if there's a yes vote, and at last check, the unofficial, I think it was out of all the votes that are in right now, about 80% of it is voters are saying yes. What it will do is lay that groundwork, the framework of the Civilian Review Board, but there's no specifics really in there. Again, that has to be agreed upon with the Fraternal Order of Police, and that's where voters are a little skeptical. A lot of them I spoke would say that they just couldn't vote for something that didn't have the specifics. They weren't sure if it would work because there are no specifics in how much it will cost. There are no specifics in what powers this review board will have, disciplinary actions they will be able to hand down. None of that is in there because it has to be agreed upon with the Fraternal Order of Police. The people who agree with this measure, they all say that this is something that is good. It's a good starting place. We need some type of civilian review board in order to just hold police officers accountable and have somebody outside of the police department reviewing this misconduct. So it's really a split on where you fall within. Do you need the details to vote yes, or do you think this is just a good starting point? And right now, like I said, unofficially, voters look like they are overwhelmingly saying yes to having this here in Columbus.
Sean, do you think the mayor, and I don't know if you have spoken to him recently, I know they were really in support of this, but this overwhelming really response to it at this point, let me check the numbers again. It looks like 80% of people are voting yes, despite, like you said, not knowing many details. Have you talked to Mayor Ginther today, or do you plan to at some point this evening to see what his thoughts are on this?
Well, we spoke to him yesterday, and we've been in contact today. He's hoping that this issue is called early because, again, this gets the ball rolling as far as police reform. But one of the things that he did mention yesterday is that many of the charter amendments, when they've had other issues similar to this, there are no details. What they have is an outside commission that will look at the best practices and how that should be applied to the city. So this is no different in that. He was pretty optimistic yesterday, not saying that this would happen, but he said that he wanted to trust the will of the people. He believed that he listened to a lot of people here in Columbus when they were out protesting, saying this is what they wanted. This was something that the Safety Commission here in Columbus also had as a top priority. So this was something that the city of Columbus and Mayor Ginther's administration had been looking to do for a long time since he's been in office, and this was just kind of the perfect opportunity to get this done. He's very optimistic about it, but of course, we also spoke with the FOP president of the local chapter here. His name is Keith Farrell. He's not in agreeing with this. He doesn't like to vote for something without knowing those details, even though if there is a yes, if this is passed, the FOP will have to negotiate the specifics, and he's willing to do that, but he's not willing to vote yes on this without knowing any of the details, Christine.
All right, Sean, for those people who are just joining us, can you kind of explain, because we don't want to worry them, set the scene for us, tell us where you are and what's going on behind you, because we don't want them to assume anything.
Oh, no, we're downtown, right down the street from CPD headquarters, and the police activity that you're looking at behind me is just pretty much they're blocking off this part of Marconi Boulevard just as a precaution. What they're doing is making sure and really gearing up just in case there's any type of unrest that happens here in the city. This allows their entrances to be free so they can get these officers where they need to be at. It's similar to what we saw them do over the summer when there were a lot of protests each day. They started to block off this area. That gave them easy access in and out. Nothing to report right now, but they're just on standby in case something happens, Christine.
All right, Sean, hey, thank you so much for that. We really appreciate you being out there this evening. I'm sure we'll be in touch with you as soon as this race is called, and we'll get reaction from mayor and city officials as well as the FOP. So we'll catch up with you soon there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, guys, let's take another look at our election results here on NBC4i.com. We are waiting right now for Danielle Grossman, who is also out covering races for us this evening. But first, let's get back to the races. I think we'll have Danielle here shortly.
Yep.
Let's go back to me right now, and we will... All right, looks like we're going to have Danielle... right now. Hey, Danielle, can you hear me? All right, people are looking forward to hearing from you. All right, let's get going with Danielle right now. All right, Danielle Grossman joining us right now. Good evening, Danielle. Danielle, set the scene for us. Where are you in the races you're covering this evening? Kind of loud where you are.
Hey, Christine. No, actually, we are here at Whetstone Community Center, one of the polling locations. Earlier today, it was packed here. We were also at another polling location, a community center, and they saw the biggest surge of people going to vote early this morning. And some of the people at the polls, the volunteers, they told us they saw about 700 people vote before 9 a.m. and then a total of 2,000 by the time the polls closed about an hour ago. So that was a big majority of them came out to the polls really early in the morning. Now, something very interesting that I heard as well pertaining to this election and this election night, they saw a lot of curbside voting. So a lot of the volunteers I talked to said that they saw a substantial amount of people doing curbside voting this year. They said it almost quadrupled from previous years, including the presidential elections in the past. And they think, obviously, because of COVID-19 concerns, a lot of people were choosing not to leave their vehicles and not go inside the polling locations to vote, which was a big thing.
But a lot of people did all of their voting, either absentee voting. We saw those big lines in the beginning. And we also think those lines in the beginning were because a lot of employers right now, with the state of what's happening across the country and of course here in Ohio, a lot of them were working with the employees and they allowed them to vote really early in the morning, gave them some time to go to cast their ballots at their precincts, which was a great thing to get it out of the way. Those lines were very long. Some of these precincts and some of these polling locations saw lines out the door for hours and hours. And I know even my photographer here, Dan, waited over an hour to cast his ballot. But by the time 10 o'clock came, a lot of these polling locations saw a lot more of a steady pace of people going in to vote, which was good. But I think everyone was pretty impressed by what happened, despite some hiccups in the beginning with some of the registration issues. But overall, it was a pretty smooth process. And I also talked to Representative Miller earlier tonight. He said there are some things that we could fix here in Franklin County to get the voting up and moving a little smoother, a little faster for all of our constituents here in Ohio. But overall, I think it was a pretty smooth day for a lot of people. And most people who wanted to vote got their vote in. And those who were doing absentee ballots, also, Christine, they had to get those in by 7:30 for those to count.
Did you see? I know the lines were a little bit slower towards the end. So was the line? You said I was watching your hits in some of your other places. It was wrapped around some of the tennis courts at some of the community centers that we were at. Towards the end, though, you saw kind of people trickling in. Was that? Did you see anybody rushing in at the last minute at 7:30 or anything like that?
Yeah, you know, we actually expected, Christine, a mad rush towards the end. As you can expect, a lot of people are getting off work around 5 o'clock. So between 5 and 7:30, according to all of these polling volunteers, they told us that they expected a surge of people to come vote and cast their ballot last minute. But we didn't see that surge like we expected, but we did see a few people really run in at that last minute between 7 and 7:30. Actually, at our last live shot at like 7:32, we did see a few people get turned away. They actually locked the doors at the community center, which was such a bummer.
Hate to see that, yeah.
Who didn't get to cast her ballot, yeah, for sure.
All right, Danielle, is it still quiet there, or do you still have poll workers and different things where you are? Are you near the Clintonville area? Is that correct?
Yeah, we are. Christine, we are in Clintonville. We are at Whetstone. So right now, as you can see, it's pretty much cleared out right now. As soon as the polls closed around 7:30, they started clearing out. All of the volunteers left. Obviously, as you can expect, it was a very long day for these volunteers. So I think everyone went home and they're all waiting for these election results to roll in tonight in their homes. But overall, it's pretty quiet at a lot of these polling locations. We were at a few earlier today, and most of them cleared out pretty quick around 7:30, 7:45.
All right, Danielle, we appreciate your reporting for us tonight. We're going to hop on over back to the State House where Adrienne Robbins is. We appreciate you being with us this evening, Danielle. Adrienne is on standby for us, as you can see there. Let me give her a phone call, and we will get in touch with Adrienne here just a second. Adrienne, we saw you very diligently. I took your shot just a little bit too early, but we're on you now. We saw you diligently working those sources of yours on your cell phone there. What's going on in Ohio? What's the latest since we have last spoken to you about an hour ago?
Yeah, Christine, you know, I think me, like every other reporter tonight, just constantly keeps hitting refresh because it seems more and more votes are coming in, even though I think we all know as well that we're going to have a lull night here in Ohio, and it is going to be quite a while until we do have those concrete results, but it does get a little addicting at times to just keep looking, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely, Adrienne. I mean, I'm guilty of it myself. If I weren't jabbering this entire time, I would constantly be on Twitter. But lucky we've got you and all of our other reporters out there that are able to do that. Are you the only one in the State House, or are there other reporters with you there this evening?
No, this room has kind of become the war room for reporters here, and Secretary LaRose has said that if they did have any issues, he would come back down here to brief those reporters. I don't know if you'll be able to see behind me, Christine, but you can see the results are actually up on the big screen. They have that for us. And then they also have the major networks behind me here as well. So they've kind of set up a nice room here at the State House for us to be able to file our stories and obviously go live as we slowly see those votes trickle.
All right, Adrian, we're going to come up here on a broadcast cut in here shortly. Let's go over some of the numbers that we are seeing here in Ohio. Let me refresh my screen here, and then we can talk about that. Looks like so Vice President Joe Biden did get out to an early lead, but as more counties, especially those rural counties, bring in the votes, you can see the race getting tighter here in Ohio, and that's something we expect. So talk about that early dump of numbers and how those are early votes as well as absentee votes, which traditionally do lean a little bit more Democratic.
Right, so Ohio is interesting. Not all states count their early and absentee votes first, but obviously we know that Ohio is one that does. So you can see those results, but you have to look at them through a certain lens because we do know that normally.
All right, Adrian, I don't mean to cut you off here, but we're going to do a little cut in here with Carrie and Colleen. Just stand by for us.
Good evening to you, everybody, and thank you for joining us for this primetime election update. I'm Carrie Charles.
And Colleen Marshall. More results are pouring into our newsroom at this hour. The Associated Press projected Republican Jim Jordan is the winner for the House in Ohio's 4th Congressional District. He is, of course, the incumbent representing the district since 2007. Shannon Freshour was his Democratic challenger.
Now, there are a lot of eyes on the Buckeye State, as you know, during the presidential race. Brad Johansson is keeping a close eye on how Ohio is voting, breaking down those numbers. What have you found?
Guys, stay with me. This is what we talked about at the 7 o'clock hour. What could Joe Biden do to change? This is 2016. Donald Trump won Ohio by 8%. Franklin County. Could you move up and take blue up here? Could you move Cuyahoga County and some of the undecideds and move it over here? Could you bring it down? And we talked about Wood County that has chosen the president each time since 1980. Take a look at the map. Here's where we are. You've now moved up and you see Knox County is gone Democratic. If we move into Delaware County, now understand these are the early vote counts. Precincts reporting 0%, but the early votes that came in Democratic. Toledo moving down into Wood County. And as you see Cuyahoga County spreading out, so democratically with 55% of the vote coming in, it is about 3,100 votes coming in. Joe Biden leading 54% to 44% with the early vote coming in. And some of the spread we talked about potentially changing Ohio may be happening.
All right, thanks so much, Brad. Of course, it is early, and of course, we are going to continue to follow this. Be sure to log on to NBC4i.com. We're going to have live digital coverage with digital anchor Christine Varconi and the most up-to-date election results as well.
That's right. We have political analysts who will be joining us throughout the evening. We're going to get on in just a matter of moments. It's interesting how the country is keyed in on Ohio tonight. We're also watching the race down there in Florida, which right now is too close to call. Thought the president in many cases might have had a lot of headway, but he really needs Florida, so we've been watching that with NBC tonight.
And of course, we are also going to be keeping a very close eye on some of the congressional races, specifically here in central Ohio. We're looking at that 12th district. That's considered to be the closest possible race between the incumbent Republican Troy Balderson, his Democratic challenger Elena Shearer. We're going to have results on all of that for you all throughout the night here on NBC4.
Also have some local amendments we will be watching in Columbus. So stick with us throughout the night right here on NBC4, your local election headquarters.
Adrian Robbins back with us from the State House. Adrian, thank you so much for pausing while we did that broadcast cut in. Important results coming in from there. The race being called for Troy Balderson. People were watching. His opponent definitely had a lot of support, but the incumbent Troy Balderson does win. Adrian, we were talking about Ohio overall, and of course the early voting came in for Vice President Joe Biden as the big 3 C's, Columbus, Cleveland, Cincinnati, did their big dump of early and absentee votes. So just kind of talk about that and why that is and why we usually do see that.
Obviously, this year was going to be a year unlike any other. We've had record-breaking absentee numbers and early vote totals as well, and those are kind of these first votes that we're starting to see come in. And as you said, as we know, historically, those methods of voting have leaned more Democratic. Now we're going to start to see the slow trickle in of the votes that were cast today, and that's what we normally see on election night, and this is when we start to play kind of that waiting game. So yes, at one point or another, Joe Biden or then President Donald Trump may be up in Ohio, but you do kind of have to wait and look at all the results that are coming in from a certain lens.
Absolutely. Adrian, you've been able to watch a little bit more national coverage than I have at this point, because I've been jabbering away for about an hour here now. What are they saying across the big three cable networks right now?
There's obviously a lot of focus on Florida, and we knew that there would be. It seemed like Florida, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, these states really took center stage this election, while Ohio almost kind of took a back seat as far as the swing states. But now they are talking about Ohio because we are one of the states who are going to see some of our results a little bit early than other states like Pennsylvania and Michigan. I've seen several people say that they're going to be watching Ohio as kind of a bellwether for this area of the country, because we will have more complete results than they will earlier in the night. And you kind of can see how people in this area of the country are voting this year.
All right, Adrian, we really appreciate you being with us this evening. We're going to check in actually with more of our political analysts here. We have Morgan Harper, Terry Casey. Carrie Charles is actually going to be taking over and doing this interview for us as soon as Carrie gets off the set here. I see Carrie. Hey, guys, how are you doing this evening?
Good. How are you?
Hey, everybody.
Good.
Well.
Awesome. All right, guys. I'm gonna let Carrie take over for you guys this evening, and let's get this party started and see what you guys' thoughts are on what has been happening across the country and here in Columbus and Central Ohio this evening.
How fun is this? We get to do this in this weird digital world. Because this race here in Ohio, when we're talking about the presidential race, it's so close, and we're watching this, and interesting how we are seeing some shifts in different counties. Terry, start with me tonight, your reaction to watching these numbers come in, and I'm just doing a quick check of NBC4i.com. We have, and I'm looking for 56% of the votes in, Joe Biden right now with 53%, Donald Trump with 45%. When you see that, you have your take, you're watching. What do you see as a Republican watching this tonight?
Well, first of all, in polling as well as election results, I kind of do the analogy to a bowl of soup. If you have a bowl of soup in front of you and it's not mixed up and you just put your spoon in and get a little bit of it, it's not necessarily representative. And part of the difficulty, good news, bad news in Ohio, like here in Franklin County, over half the vote was early voting with mail-in and in-person, huge number, but it was very much skewed more Democrat, and we knew that was going to come in. And that's true in some other parts of the state in varying degrees. So right now what we're seeing is an early part of the sample, but it's not really a complete picture, because we knew the Democrats were going to start out ahead. We knew the Republicans would narrow. The question is how much more is to come in, because like in Franklin County, when I checked about 5 minutes ago, they were still only reporting the early vote from the mail-in and the walk-in, but they didn't have any of today's votes, which you know is going to skew more Republican. So I'm not saying Trump's going to win Ohio, because Biden is doing well so far, but the margin is narrowing up. And then you look at other states like Florida, it's easier to see what's happening there because they're around 91, 92% of the vote. But then I was
going to say, don't let's not get Florida yet. I want to get to Florida in a second. I know we're so excited to jump around, but I want to stay here first, because Florida is its own case taking place. Morgan, when you see this and you watch from your perspective tonight, and it's interesting because you see the race from where you are seated. What's your reaction to how Ohio is turning out tonight?
I mean, these seem like really good numbers for Biden. I agree with Terry that, it's still early. We haven't gotten to 100% count yet or reporting, but I think some of the numbers are showing that actually this is only about 30% early voting numbers. We are getting some of the actual election day results in, and it's clear that Biden is at a minimum very much outperforming Hillary Clinton in all of the counties where he needs to be doing that. And so that seems like a really great sign, and we'll see how the numbers continue to develop. But yeah, it's undeniable that he's trending in the right direction right now.
So what made the difference here in Ohio? Because there are many people, especially when you watch from how President Trump responded, then candidate Trump in 2016 in Ohio, many people were expecting a similar result. Not necessarily maybe as strong and so fast so early, but what made the difference? If you were looking at this, Morgan, and you seeing maybe some hope, you see this pathway for Biden, what made the difference with voters?
I think there are a couple of things. I mean, one, there has been a lot of organizing that's been happening to turn out new voters, register new voters. And so I believe this is a part of that. But we can't deny the role of the coronavirus here. And, you know, it comes up in a lot of conversations, but it's a big issue. It's been identified in national polling, and for Ohio specifically, as one of the most important issues for voters here. And we are seeing a new wave of cases, and the mismanagement, better put, of the president for this virus is clearly impacting his results in Ohio. And so, you know, again, we'll see how everything lands, but at a minimum, this is a much closer race than folks anticipated.
Terry, Morgan used the word mismanagement. Is that a fair word? Is that a fair assessment when we're looking at the president? And also, what is your take and what is making a difference in tonight? As you say, there's still a pathway here.
Well, I'm not sure there really is a difference because, again, comparing to 2016 is apples and giraffes because the early vote was so big and so important. And I think strategically, the president made a big mistake when he told a lot of these Republican voters, don't vote by mail, wait and vote on election day. So right now, it's hard to make a comparison of 16 versus 20 because they're done so differently, early vote versus later vote. And it might very well be that Biden does carry Ohio, but it's just difficult so far because I haven't had a chance, example, to go into each of the 88 counties and see how much of the early vote's in. I know it's in Franklin County, and that vote was in like 10 minutes after the polls closed. So you had an early uptick because Biden is doing very, very well in the early vote in Franklin County, but we haven't seen a lot of the rural counties in, and I don't know how much of the mix they're in. I don't know Hamilton County, at least when I checked 10, 15 minutes ago, Hamilton County wasn't in, and that'll make a difference. I don't know whether Cuyahoga County's in. So we've got a bunch of different factors, and it's still too hard to tell. Some other states where it's more consistently done and reported, where you've got like 90 or 92%, then you can more easily check and see how close it is. So definitely Biden's ahead now. It's going to narrow. The question is, how much does it narrow?
Just did a quick refresh on our website, and so it's up, not making a huge difference here, but we're up to 59% of the vote and 52% of that vote going to the Biden camp and 46% going to the president. All right, Terry, I'm going to ask you to fasten into your seatbelt on the plane here and put your, what do they call it, your tray upright, because we're going to go down to Florida. That was the analogy, the thing they always give you when you take off flying. All right, so in the Sunshine State, President Trump is with 50.7%, while Biden is at 48.3% with 91% of the expected vote in. This is really, Terry, keeping the president in play tonight.
Well, he's definitely in play. And what I was surprised, and the same thing happened in 2016 when with another person was at another station and we dug into county by county in Florida. And what I was looking at is Dade and Broward that are heavily Democratic, but they also had a comparable amount of the vote in around that 89, 91%. And then I looked at more rural counties where, and so it seems like the percentage of the vote in right now is fairly even. And it looked like, quick math, Trump was up maybe 300,000 votes. So if we saw that where Miami and Fort Lauderdale were at, you only had 60% of the vote in, and Biden was behind by that much, you could see, wow, it will close and potentially Biden goes ahead. But at least, again, I'm about 10, 15 minutes out of date, It seems like Florida is a pretty consistent number in terms of their returns and the percentage in. So I'm not ready to say definitely he's going to carry Florida, but it's better to be ahead with 91 or 92% of the vote in and having a balanced amount of the return. But there's other states that I looked at where Trump wasn't doing as well as expected. But again, we don't know the mix of early vote that leans Democrat versus later election day vote, how that's going to factor in the mix. So from our quick, cheap air flight to Florida, that's what you get. You get your money's worth.
Yeah, you get your money's worth. Morgan, you're watching Florida tonight. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we always knew Florida was going to be tough. The Biden campaign themselves, the campaign manager, I think, was projecting a little bit about the challenges that they would face there earlier today. Obama has gone there to stump for Biden. So, that was not going to be a guarantee. But I think one of the interesting things to note, and it's something for us to just keep in mind as we're watching what's happening in a lot of states, is, there has been a shift in the demographic that so we have, a higher percentage of people of color who are voting in this election, it seems like, from early exit polls. And conventional wisdom would suggest that would go in Biden's favor. But in a state like Florida, it's not necessarily the case. The Latino community there does tend to trend more conservative. And, that could be connected to some of the results that we're seeing. It's just why it's continues to be an uphill battle for a Democrat.
I think that same point that you make is very similar in the case of Georgia, where there are all eyes on Georgia. Typically, Democrats kind of say, well, here you go, Republicans. Here's your state. We won't fight you for it. But that's not the case. And it was really interesting to see former President Obama down there campaigning yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, that is going to be a big trend in some of these states that are in play. Texas, Georgia, where in the urban areas there has been a huge growth in the Black voting population. And Biden voters are saying, again, according to these early national exit polls, that racial equality or inequality is one of their top issues. And so, you have to believe that that is connected to what a lot of Black voters are taking with them into the polls. And hopefully that will help to push Biden over the edge in those states.
I think we are just against the clock. I thought Christine would hop in here. Terry, as we wrap up, your final thoughts moving ahead, what will you be watching for the rest of the evening?
Well, I'm going to watch at certain states. I'm also looking at the Senate races because these Senate battles, obviously Mitch McConnell looks like he's got it won, and there's some other ones that are moving in the right direction as far as Republicans are concerned. But I think an earlier prediction on your air was the Senate could go 2 votes either way. And then you're going to get into the game of what happens with Joe Manchin, a conservative Democrat. How does that line up? So the Senate's definitely going to be an interesting parlor game to watch as the day goes on. But again, I thought Florida would be the pivot state. It won't. Pennsylvania is going to be late, but Ohio's in more play than what some people thought it was going to be.
Yeah, we're in good company. And as you talk about those Senate races, I'm also in just states overall watching Arizona and Texas Texas will be huge and see.
And remember, Georgia's got not 1 but 2 seats, and they're probably might require a runoff later on. So the control of the Senate might not be determined until in January.
Okay, Morgan, I think I'm just going to double check this. Oh, Christine is listening. She said, great conversation. She likes listening to us. Morgan, what are you going to be watching tonight as we move ahead and we try and read the tea leaves and we watch each state come through, because we're going to get a ball rolling here shortly with the results coming in. Which races, which states will you be paying close attention to?
Yeah, well, I think, we can't look away is the main idea here, because as Terry noted, there's a lot of shifts in just voting patterns this cycle because of the coronavirus and the push for a lot of early voting and mail-in ballots. What I've been encouraged to see is how a lot of the state officials are projecting and preparing people to manage expectations about how much we'll know by the end of tonight or even tomorrow. And the most important thing is that there is a complete count, that we have absolute certainty about the outcome of the election, and that we take as much time to get there as possible. So I'm going to be glued to my seat, continuing to see it all develop, but we have to trust the process and see where it lands.
It's a fun night. Thank you all so much for going on this cheap flight with us. Hopefully you got a tan or something down there while we were in Florida. Thank you all.
Where's my peanuts?
I'll get you peanuts later.
We don't have peanuts. They don't do that anymore.
We got lots of extra Halloween candy.
Right.
I got some crackers on a Southwest flight a few months ago.
Okay.
All right, guys. Hey, thank you so much for being with us. Carrie, I appreciate the reprieve. I've been talking. I think the people were sick of hearing my voice. So, Terry, Morgan, and Carrie, thank you so much for doing this. That was a great conversation. We love having you guys, and we appreciate you guys being with us this evening. So we'll check back in with you all soon.
Sounds good. Great to be here.
All right.
Christine, are we done for this segment this hour?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you much. I'll get back to looking at the numbers.
All right. Thank you, guys. Just wrapping up that Zoom call with those experts there. Great conversation that they had with Carrie. Want to bring in another guy for us this evening. I got to get that Colleen Marshall lower third off there before I can bring in Brad Johansson.
So much to do.
So much to do. I should have done that while I was relaxing. So, all right. There we go. Brad Johansson joining us right now, and a little bit ago on the broadcast side of things, you were looking at the latest AP map, and let's I'm going to get that pulled up for us. But what were you seeing there?
Well, I want to focus on Ohio and where we are right now.
Okay.
We have talked about the Republican president made it to the White House without the president has made it since 1964 without Ohio. So the situation that we're looking at right now, we've got 62% of the vote in. And Joe Biden now at 51% to Donald Trump's 47%.
I've got that map pulled up for us.
Yeah, probably a lead of about 150,000 votes. As we talk about where that map spreads out, what I wanted to take a look at was Delaware County, which had gone for Trump in 2016. 23% of the precincts reporting right now, but it is early going, moving that up. We talked about Columbus always going Democratic, but could Joe Biden spread that out a little bit? If that continues in Delaware County, we will see that. We always see that Cuyahoga County continues to move that direction, but could he spread that out? You see in Portage County, we see something in Columbiana County. So some of the early going would get that spread. Toledo, we have seen that. We talked about Ottawa County. How about we look at Ottawa County now? These are some of the absentee ballots coming in. This would give an indication that Joe Biden is moving in Ohio. It's very, very early, but we talk about Hancock County. We talk about Wood County. Wood County has helped predict the president since 1980. Those early numbers, with 28% of the precincts reporting, would give an indication that Joe Biden is doing much better than Hillary Clinton did in the early going. And that early going with 62% of the vote is starting to move more Democratic in this state.
Definitely really interesting. I talked about that during our 4:30 show. Mentioned that Ottawa County has always predicted this election, and it's very interesting to see 55% of the vote going to Joe Biden at this point. Delaware County, Athens County is another county that you see here in blue. Big, usually a Democratic stronghold, 71% of the vote for Biden as well. And you can see here, this is the AP elections map, really good resource that we have linked on NBC4i.com there, Brad, and that's what you've been watching. Give us a timetable of when we have seen these results come in. I know the big 3 C's, they really gave that early and absentee ballots pretty early.
Well, I anticipate, even in listening to the governor this afternoon, he said, I anticipate with what we have done at the Board of Elections, the numbers coming in, we might anticipate before midnight, maybe even before that. I think the governor said that he believed that Ohio would be called. We're getting a lot of numbers in coming in at 62%. And if Ohio goes to Joe Biden, it's pretty telling that Donald Trump has a very difficult path to staying in the White House.
All right, Brad, we are going to dip into this press conference right now via Zoom that the Democratic Party is holding. David Pepper, the chairman there, is talking right now. So let's listen to what he has to say. Not seeing any audio from that. Maybe we can get our tech team to work on that and see what they have to say there. In the meantime, let's go down and take a look. Let's look at this electoral map that the AP
Okay.
has as far as the United States goes. We've got that there here in the middle. Several states called at this point. What's standing out to you?
What's standing out right now is North Carolina, that we've got 80% of the vote in, and it's a strong indication, especially when you go to places like Raleigh. 60, almost 66% of the vote in the Triangle in Raleigh, very heavy towards Joe Biden. If you look at Mecklenburg County, which is where Charlotte is as well, 68% of the vote going to Joe Biden. We thought that North Carolina was going to be a toss-up state. Indicators right now with 80% of the vote in. It's still too early to call, but there's probably another 1,000 votes right now. And in those big states with a little bit leaning on the east that we're still waiting on. But if North Carolina goes and Ohio goes, that's pretty significant for Joe Biden and pretty telling for Donald Trump. If I look at anything else, we probably would look at Texas, but it's very early, although they have 61% of the vote going in. Joe Biden had to do well in the big cities. He's doing well in Austin. He's doing well in San Antonio, doing well in Houston, in Dallas, and in El Paso. And he has a slim lead right now, but who would have thought that Texas could possibly go Democratic?
That was my next question. Brad, did you ever think that Texas would be a swing state?
Christine, it is 2020, so anything is possible. This is the murder hornet of the Electoral College right now is what we're dealing with, because you don't really know what is driving people to the polls. Here's what I said, and I will say this: when I woke up, I was still awake when Donald Trump became president in 2016, and I said,
I was working in Eastern Ohio at the time.
I said, regardless of where you are on this, I think Trump will be a motivator for people in this country to get involved in what they care about in their country. And I think over these 4 years, that's probably proven true. I think by what we're seeing now at the polls, early voting records that we're going to see broken again today with people still walking up to the polls, that has made people get interested in their country, the things that they care about, and say, my vote actually does count. And we've been waiting a long time in America for something like this.
Certainly. And they were talking about the numbers up in Cuyahoga County. That's really people not getting out to vote, especially in urban areas, is what really sealed the deal for Donald Trump to win, when people weren't excited about Hillary Clinton, especially here in Ohio, and they didn't get out to vote. And that's why when I spoke to Mayor Pete Buttigieg yesterday, who has been one of the most vocal proponents for Vice President Biden, especially despite the fact that they were opponents not too long ago.
Sure.
That's why he says that there's a path to victory for former Vice President Biden, but people have to go out to vote. Obviously, President Donald Trump, as you've seen, he's been holding his big, huge rallies as per usual, so it's not a factor with motivating his base. You can see that in the crowd sizes. Of course, Joe Biden intentionally not holding those types of events.
Well, it's a different stance.
Absolutely.
I mean, we are as divided a country as we have ever been. But in doing so, can we potentially, regardless of the outcome tonight, create a unified force? I think there are people on the Democratic side who say absolutely not if we go back to Donald Trump. And I still think we have a majority on the conservative side voting for Donald Trump who say absolutely not, we will not be unified. Coming out of this election, we have a very long process of trying to figure out how to listen to one another civilly. And you're seeing that by many of these major cities where there were protests, with businesses boarding up and saying, I'm terrified of what comes on Wednesday. And we have to, as a country, figure out, and it won't be on Wednesday. It will be a lot of Wednesdays down the road that we figure out how are we going to be able to have discourse, listen to one another, and figure out how we can move on. There was a time in the House and in the Senate long, long ago where you worked bipartisan for the betterment of the people of America, and it's gone. It's gone by the wayside. We got to come back.
I think that's something that former Ohio Governor John Kasich likes to point out a lot, is that back when he was a representative, that they really worked together and got things done according to him. I'm sure everybody remembers it differently, but that's his recollection, is that he really worked with people across the aisle, and he gives different examples all the time of that. Of course, he's, very vocally not the biggest. He's not a Donald Trump supporter. He endorsed Joe Biden. He was even, participated in the convention here. I want to dip in actually to our newscast and with Colleen and Carrie that we have going on right now, and then we're going to continue our discussion because I think it's important, Brad.
The establishment possibly of a civilian review board in Columbus. The results have not been called finally, but right now, nearly 80% of the voters are for issue 2. That civilian review board for police would review possible police misconduct within the city limits in Columbus. We're keeping a close eye on that, but again, 4-1 right now. We'll have the results as we get them. And the Franklin County Board of Elections has been a very busy place today and really in the past few days.
And for the next several hours to come tonight, the ballots are coming in and it's going to be a long night there. Let's check in again with NBC4's Dan Perlman. He joins us live. What's the situation taking place right now?
Well, Carrie and Colleen, you really hit it on the head. It is extremely busy here at this hour. You can see for yourself the lines of poll workers driving into those tents so elections officials can pull their ballots and the elections equipment out of their cars and bring all of those materials inside so every vote cast today can in fact be counted. Now, we've been telling you this is expected to go on for the next couple of hours or so. Elections officials say it may be into the early morning hours that they are counting every single vote that again was cast today. I can tell you I did just check with elections officials a short time ago. They tell me right now everything here is running smoothly. We do expect another update from them within the next 45 minutes to an hour or so. Of course, we'll let you know what they have to say at that point. Colleen, Carrie.
All right, thanks so much, Dan. And of course, we're keeping a close eye as well on all of the updates here in Ohio in that presidential race. Everybody expected the Democrats to come in heavy at the beginning, the Republicans more likely to be day of voters.
That's right. More than 50% of the vote is in for Joe Biden. The rest in for Donald Trump, sitting at 48% right now. Remember, 18 electoral votes are at stake right here in the Buckeye State.
As they try to get to that magic 270, that's what they need to ensure that they will be going to the White House. We hope you'll stay with us on air and online. We're doing lots of coverage online as well, NBC4i.com. You can keep that on your lap and watch TV at the same time.
On your phone is so easy, so much fun. We'll see you online, and then we will be back together in 30 minutes for another local update.
We'll see you then.
Colleen just told everybody to watch us on their lap, on their cell phone. So that's fun. Hello, everybody. If you were watching from your cell phone, we appreciate it. Brad Johansson coming back with me right now. While we were in that cut-in, Joe Biden just picked up an additional 3 electoral votes from the state of Vermont. I want to get back to what Brad was saying because I just think it's really important. And it's very similar to what the governor had to say when he was talking to Chuck Todd this afternoon. He was saying, whoever you vote for, Biden, Trump, whoever wins, we all have a united enemy at this point, and it's still the coronavirus. I don't think that we should forget to mention that we set another record with coronavirus cases.
We set a ridiculous record
Ridiculous
today.
one, yes. 10% increase.
And it's kind of an afterthought because of Election Day. 4,200 cases, and the testing continues. And we continue to move into a colder temperature, although this week's going to change everything as we move to the 70 degrees. But if we're talking about people who have COVID fatigue, wait till you get COVID and then feel the fatigue, because you got 4,200 people getting tested today. We're in the 30s with more deaths. Hospitalizations are up. Treatments are better. But I'm talking to a bunch of long haulers, and I know, Christine, you remember Katie, the girl that we've had test positive over and over since the beginning of May. She says her life will never be the same. For many of the people who are getting this virus, it is changing the body. And for all that we don't know about COVID-19, which is a lot through these 8 months, what we're going to find out down the road about what it does to a lot of these people is probably going to be extremely scary.
Yes, definitely, Brad. I have a friend, same exact age as me, went to high school and college together, and in his mid to late 20s, and he got a positive COVID diagnosis. He had mild symptoms, like the normal. He was never hospitalized, but he has continuing care where he has to see a cardiologist at this point, because he is experiencing, heart issues.
Palpitations.
Yeah, palpitations and really chest tightness and different things like that you would not expect from a 28, 29-year-old. So definitely more than just hospitalizations and deaths. And like you mentioned with Katie, it's going to be a lifelong thing.
Yeah. So your point was we're going to have to figure out how to deal with this. Whoever is president, once we finish this, and it probably will not be on Wednesday, we're going to have to figure out on both sides of the aisle whether or not it's okay for everybody to wear masks, whether or not it's okay for businesses to change the way they're dealing with it. And we've got to get an economy back, but we've got to save some people's lives around here as well.
Absolutely. Brad Johansson, thank you for being with us this evening. Up next, we have Jennifer Bullock and Dan Perlman.
Oh, it gets better then.
Gets better. I see Jen. She's sitting on our nice couch that we have there. Thanks, Brad. While Jennifer gets set up, let's take a look at this map again. Let's take a look at the Ohio map for the presidential race. This is a really good and cool resource that we have right here. As you can see, still 122 electoral votes so far allotted to Joe Biden and 92 to President Trump. Right now, Joe Biden has a lead in Ohio, 50% of the votes. President Donald Trump with 48% of those votes, about 1% to Libertarian Joe Jorgensen, and then less than half to the Independent Howie Hawkins that we all saw on our ballot here. Let's I'm gonna call. Let's let some full screens play for you guys right now, and also just so you know, we have results coming in, reporting at the bottom of your page here. Let me refresh and make sure this is all up to date for you. Yeah, so we have the latest results at the bottom of the page right now. That is the charter amendment in Columbus, and then we'll roll through some more full screens for you here in just a minute as well. So just stand by for me. NBC4 anchor Jennifer Bullock joining us right now to talk about what she's been doing election night. Phones ringing off the hooks in the Better Call 4 Center. Jennifer, what are you hearing from the people of Central Ohio about what they're seeing out and about at their polling locations?
Yeah, so I've been at Better Call Center since about 12 o'clock this afternoon. Polls opened at 6:30, closed at 7:30. Folks had a lot to say. Really concerned mostly initially about those long lines, as we would expect. But it appears that this election, they were even worse. However, we're voting in the middle of a global pandemic. So we've got 6 feet of social distancing. That obviously creates a little bit of a longer line, but also poll workers are being required to clean those polling machines in between each vote. So it delayed things just a little bit. So that was a big issue for folks. We also had some concerns, not just with the amount of time it took to vote, but just getting the vote cast. We had some issues with voting machines going down. It looks like a few different locations all across Franklin County were dealing some electrical issues that they had to end up casting paper ballots. So that obviously takes a little extra time too and adds on to that wait for folks. But it looks like things quieted down toward the end of the day. So about an hour before polls closed, it looked like some of those complaints, questions, concerns started to slow. So it looks like those precincts were able to get some of those issues resolved. And now really it's just folks questioning about absentee ballots. If you voted absentee, if you sent in ballots early, there's just concerns that when we had Franklin County issue about 50,000 incorrect ballots, if their ballot will still count, if their ballot's going to be counted on time. So, still just getting a lot of questions. As we know, the election is not going to be over tonight.
Absolutely not. But just to emphasize, a paper ballot is still a ballot.
It is still a ballot,
I mean,
yeah.
back in the day, probably up until 20 years ago, it's probably even an overestimate. That's how everybody voted. And it was still a fair election. So a paper ballot is still a ballot. If you had to vote on one of those early this morning, no worries. That's what it's there for. It's there for backup, because the paper ballots, I mean, there's something less likely to go wrong with something that you can tangibly hold than anything electronic, as we're all seeing with all of our millions of Zoom calls over the past 8 months here, Jennifer. But if people are having issues and they do have questions, how do they get in touch with you? And I know you and the Better Call 4 team will investigate that.
And that's just it. We've kind of expanded our Better Call 4 team for this specifically through the week. So we have the number 614-263-5555. Those are our phone lines that will be staffed 24/7. So, even if I'm not there to answer, someone's going to answer your phone call and make sure that they can at least put you in the right direction. You can also send an email to stories@nbc4i.com. And again, 24/7 around the clock, folks are going to be seeing those questions, concerns that you may have, and we're all working to get you answers.
Yeah, that email address goes to nearly everybody in the newsroom. So someone's going to see it. That number again is 263-5555. Good to report that there aren't any major issues coming up. We saw Frank LaRose, Secretary of State, really emphasizing that during his 2 p.m. press conference. So kind of as he said, voting is safe and secure in Ohio, and it's refreshing, and it's good to hear that. So, all right, Jen, thank you so much. Thank you for being with us. We're going to check in with Dan Perlman. I know he was a little bit busy there at the Board of Elections. Really getting to talk to some people there, so we didn't want to interrupt him doing that, but we'll check in with him as well a little bit later. All right, let's go back and see the results here on the AP page. Looks like both President Trump and Joe Biden, former vice president, have picked up some more votes in the Electoral College. Let me refresh this page and double check to see that it is the latest. So former Vice President Joe Biden with 131 electoral votes at this point. He picked up not too long ago Vermont, Virginia, and Rhode Island there. President Trump picking up Wyoming and their 3 electoral votes, West Virginia with their 5, and Tennessee with their 11. You can see here, looks like The president has taken a 1-point lead here in Ohio. So let's see if we can zero in on that, because that is definitely a change as more results are coming in from the suburbs and the rural areas here. It's very, very close here. It's 49.65 for President Trump and 49.05 for Joe Biden, with Joe Jorgensen taking the Libertarian with 1%, and then the independent vote with about 1/4 of a percentage point there. Let's go through some of our races as well. Let's take a look at the civilian review board here. Looks like it is passing overwhelmingly here in Columbus. This charter amendment that we have, 80% of people saying yes to the establishment of a civilian review board. Sean Lanier has been working on that for us. We're going to be talking to him here shortly. Let's get in touch with Sean now, as well as our Adrian Robbins. Let me give Adrian a call first and see what's going on as far as the national side of things are going, as we go over some more results here. All right, guys, we are going through some full screens right now of some of our most heavily watched races here in Central Ohio. District 7 right now, several of them have been called already. This one for Bob Gibbs has been called. District 5 has been called for Bob Latta. District 4, has been called for Jim Jordan. And then, let's see. This race right here, District 2, has not been called quite yet. And then we have District 6, which has been called for Bill Johnson. All right, it's time to check in now with Adrian Robbins, who is at the State House for us. Good evening to you, Adrian. I know we come to you a lot, but hey, you're the expert on what's happening there at the State House, and I know a lot of people are watching it tonight. What's happening in Ohio that you're paying attention to?
Well, Christine, we continue to see those ballots coming in. A little more than 4 million Ohioans' ballots have actually been counted. And as the polls suggested early on, actually, in Ohio, it's a pretty tight race here, and it's tightening up more and more as we go through the night. So it'll be interesting where we are in an hour from here, or honestly, even a half hour from now.
Yeah, absolutely. As I was talking to Jen about the Better Call 4 lines that we have set up tonight, Donald Trump, President Donald Trump took the lead here by a very small percentage point here in Ohio over Vice President Joe Biden. So that's what we're looking at right now as far as the results, especially coming from the Secretary of State's website and the AP. Any interesting things there at the State House? Any Senate or district races that have been called that you've been surprised with, or have they kind of been down the line what you expected?
They've been pretty right on of what I would expect, but it is interesting to look at these congressional races and see if they will really tell us anything about which way Ohio will go. But again, we are seeing more than 4 million Ohioans' ballots being counted, and like you said, it's still a very, very tight race here in Ohio. And at a certain point, we're going to have to start looking at just how tight that race is. You know, earlier today, Secretary LaRose said that it would be up to Ohioans to decide if they wanted to declare victory for one candidate or another here in Ohio by looking at these unofficial results. As we know, here in Ohio, we do not have those official results until November 18th. And we have more than 200,000 absentee ballots that are actually outstanding at this time. And so you start to think about those numbers. And if we do have that tight of a race, unlikely that it would be that tight, but if we do, you have to think about those absentee ballots that could still come in for another 10 days if they are postmarked by November 2nd.
That is definitely something to watch, Adrian, especially as we know, there were people who waited to the last minute per se. So we'll see exactly how long it takes to get those in, especially also you need to take into account it is a small percentage of people who voted on provisional ballots and different things like that. So definitely something to watch out for. You've been watching the national coverage. I see it over your shoulder there a little bit more. Anything exciting going on there? What are they focusing on right now? I see Wisconsin highlighted on the map, I think in the middle. That is that CNN's broadcast.
Yeah, it continues to be Wisconsin and Florida states that they're talking a lot about on the national level. But again, I think Ohio is going to become more and more important throughout the night because our results seem to be coming in a little bit quicker than states that surround us like Pennsylvania and Michigan. So some people are going to be looking to Ohio to see maybe if it would show what this part of the country is thinking during this presidential election.
All right, Adrian, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Keeping everybody, even across the country, abreast on what is happening in Ohio tonight. I know you're the go-to woman for that as well, so we won't keep you too long. Follow Adrian on Twitter, guys. She's a really good resource. Adrian, plug your Twitter for me. Is it A Robbins? I forget.
It's A Robbins TV.
Yeah,
so
no
thank
problem.
you for the plug, Christine.
yeah, no problem. Of course, Adrian has really good tweets. So if you want to keep up on what's going on, make sure you follow her on Twitter as well. All right, thanks, Adrian. We'll talk with you soon. We're gonna have Sean Lanier come in right now. As soon as I can get in touch with Sean, let me give him a phone call here, and then we will talk to Sean about this charter amendment here in Columbus that everybody is watching. Looks like I got Sean there on the phone. Hey, Sean, how are you doing? How are things with the charter amendment? Looks like you moved locations, actually.
Yeah, that's right. We did move locations, Christine. We're up at Lodge 9, the FOP Lodge, the union representing the Columbus Division of Police Officers. Moved here because we're going to be speaking with the FOP President, Keith Farrell, in just a little bit about where we're standing with this the issue 2. Right now, at about 23% of the precincts reporting, still passing at about 78%. Just going to get his thoughts on where they're at. Obviously, he was against voting for this, but it looks like the people of Columbus may be disagreeing with him and thinking that this is something that they absolutely need. Again, issue 2 is that charter amendment, which would allow the framework of a civilian review board to be built here in Columbus, which will be able to review the police misconduct within the Columbus Division of Police. A really big step that came out of years of research from the Ginther administration, and then was really heightened this year with the protests that happened over the summer, with several people across the country and here in Columbus asking for police reform, and specifically in this city, a civilian review board. Columbus is the one of the only major cities in the nation without a review board of such power, Christine.
Certainly, Sean. So you moved locations there. What part of town is the FOP in? Because you were downtown for a little bit.
Yeah, we were downtown. This is up near kind of Westerville. We're off of, I believe it's Cleveland Avenue and Schrock Road is where we're off of that intersection, just north of 270.
You're actually outside of the outer belt, yeah.
Just kind of came up here. Yeah, just right outside of it. I mean, this is where the police FOP Lodge is located. So the FOP president said he would come up here and talk with us, obviously understanding it's still a little bit early, but just want to get his thoughts on possibly moving forward if this passes, because right now, I mean, again, 23% of the precincts are reporting, and 78%, it's passing by 78%. Just what does he think about this if it does pass, and what does that mean for the negotiations moving forward between the city of Columbus and the FOP, and we heard over the summer just how heated things got at one moment where they stopped talking for a little bit. So I just really want to know, moving forward, what does this all mean for the city if the people of Columbus want this this charter amendment to allow the Civilian Review Board?
Yeah, Sean, I would be curious to hear from him, especially with the overwhelming yes vote, if maybe he perhaps would, change his mind a little bit on, because the police are there to serve the public. And if this is what the public wants, I'd be curious to see his thoughts on that, because I know he was very, very much so against it when this came out. And it did have to do a lot with the fact that what exactly this will do is not spelled out.
And one of the things that he's not totally against it. I think he wanted to negotiate everything beforehand. Reynoldsburg Police Department just had a Civilian Review Board passed, and they are this is the union representing those police officers, and they did not put anything on that on a ballot. They were able to negotiate this. Their officials and FOP officials were able to negotiate that. So I think that's what he wants, is something with a little bit more teeth, something that will work here in Columbus, an actual plan. I know there's a lot of cities that have Civilian Review Boards. I know Minneapolis has one, and again, they have their issues with police misconduct, as he pointed out to me, and he said he wants something that's just not put out there. He wants something that actually works for Columbus, and he feels that the issue 2 just doesn't have the details in it to prove that this will work here in Columbus, but it is something that they will have to negotiate if it passes.
All right, Sean, we appreciate you being there with us this evening, and we will check back in with you later. Seems like this this charter amendment is going to pass here in Columbus, as you can see with the full screen that is on your screen right now. We're going to be dipping into the broadcast here that we have online here in just a little bit. Sean, thanks for being with us this evening. Let me get plugged into that, and then we will hear from Carrie and Colleen here and just a little bit on the broadcast side of things as well. So stay with me. All right, guys, while we wait for this, I want to show you our homepage right now. This is NBC4i.com, your local election headquarters. Thank you. I just got water and chocolate dropped off. You're my new favorite, Andy, as if you weren't already. This is our homepage right now. You can watch this broadcast right here in this little live dot right there. You can also watch it on our social media pages. Want to say hello. Thank you all for staying with us this evening. Again, homepage right here, upper right-hand corner, 2020 Ohio general and presidential election results. We'll go through that here in just a minute, but we are going to dip into our news broadcast right now.
Marshall, we are still waiting for results in the Ohio House District 12 at this hour. Percent of the vote for him. Republicans squeaking out a win in 2018, and he's been a supporter of the agenda of President Trump.
Now, the last time a Democrat won this seat, it was in 1980. It was only for one term. The Democratic challenger in this year's race is Elena Shearer. Now, here are the victories we do have called from the Associated Press tonight. I told you earlier, Democrat Joyce Beatty has Ohio House District 3. She, of course, is the incumbent there. Republican Jim Jordan reelected for Ohio's 4th congressional district race. And Steve Stivers has clinched Ohio House District 15. He will serve his 5th term in that district.
More than 4 million ballots have been counted already here in Ohio, and so far it remains an extremely tight race for president. NBC4's Adrian Robbins is live at the State House tonight. And is this what most have predicted, at least for this point tonight, Adrian?
pretty much, Colleen. You know, most polls that we saw recently did have the two candidates neck and neck, and despite President Donald Trump's commanding lead in Ohio back in 2016, that's what we've been seeing so far in these results tonight. Now, Secretary of State Frank LaRose did warn that the early results would be mostly early voting and absentee voting, but we do have about a third of our precincts reporting at this time. Now, we will have unofficial results tonight or early in the morning, but again, those will only be unofficial, so many people hoping that this race does not stay too close to call at that point. Local for you at the State House, I'm Adrienne Robbins, NBC4.
All right, of course, Adrienne is at the State House, and we did talk earlier today, we should let you know, with Ohio Secretary of State Frank LaRose, who tells us that every vote will be counted no matter how long they have to stay open, and he assures everyone that despite criticism of the process here in Ohio is secure.
Speaking of that process, so many Central Ohioans, Columbus voters specifically, got involved in this election process. We saw the numbers, the early numbers, overwhelmingly for Amendment 2. We will see how that plays out. But police reform, it's been a big conversation in Central Ohio, in Columbus specifically, and of course Mayor Ginther pushing it. So many radio ads for him, I heard today.
Yeah, and the FOP, of course, was against it. But again, as Kerry said, overwhelmingly winning about 4-1 so far here in Central Ohio. That's something we'll be following for you as we continue our NBC4 election coverage.
All right, everybody, you just heard from Carrie Charles and Colleen Marshall there doing one of our broadcast cut-ins. I'm going to chat with Colleen here in just a few minutes. We are also waiting on a few things here at 10:15. We are going to get an update from Dan Perlman, who is at the Franklin County Board of Elections. Their spokesperson, Aaron Sellers, is going to give an update on how things are going there. Last time we heard from Dan, there were cars and cars and cars just lining up, bringing in those ballots into the Franklin County Board of Elections there. We're also going to check in with Eric Halpern, who is at the GOP watch party for the state up in Westerville. Also, we're going to be chatting with the poll workers here that we have going on shortly. Let me run some full screens for you. Columbus Civilian Review Board happening right now. 78% of the votes. It is passing at this point. What looks like 20% of the votes in. Also, in case you have not noticed, running at the bottom of your screen throughout this broadcast are the majority of the races we are watching here in Central Ohio from all of our counties. You can see that coming in live reports, live results coming in from those as well. We'll check in with some of our district races right now. Steve Stivers, that one called for him. Also, so that is what's happening there. Steve Stivers will be re-elected. Check out this one. This one was called Early. Joyce Beatty winning handily over Mark Richardson here. So it looks like we are going to be able to chat with one of our poll workers here. I had several friends, I don't know about you guys, really just step up. I was really proud to see so many of my friends, young people, really just stepping up and being part of the democratic process and making sure that voting could happen today. Secretary of State and the boards of elections really put out a call to people who normally wouldn't be poll workers. You see a lot of retired people usually doing that as well, and we're going to be talking with Nicole here shortly, so just stand by for me. All right, guys, I was talking about those poll workers. This is my friend Nicole. She was working in Columbus today. Good evening, Nicole. You just got home from working the polls there. Tell us about your experience. Was this your first time working there? Oh, looks like my friend Siraj is going to join us as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I just got home from working the polls about an hour ago. I was at the Greek Orthodox Church on High Street. It was my first time. It was such a good experience. I would encourage everyone to try and work the polls in their life.
What were you seeing? How busy were you guys today?
Yeah, we were pretty busy this morning. Right when the polls opened, we had a line, and you might have heard about some electronic poll books being down around Franklin County. So we moved to a paper check-in process very quickly. So there was just a little bit of a holdup first thing in the morning with the lines, but they tapered off throughout the day, and we had no lines for most of the day.
Tell us about that paper process that you guys had to go through. I think you're the first poll worker that we're actually hearing from that can describe exactly how that went down logistically.
Sure. So when we first got there this morning, typically we have a little iPad, like an electronic poll book, where we double check the voters' registration, make sure they're at the right voting location, and that we have the right ballot for them. So this morning we were notified that those electronic poll books did not work, but we had a paper process totally ready to go as backup. And up until a few years ago, the paper process is what they used for every voter. The electronic option just wasn't there. So everyone was really familiar with the process. We were ready to go, and all of the voting machines worked out just fine. So it was just a paper check-in. Took a couple extra minutes at first to get our feet on the ground, but once we got started, it was really easy and we were good to go.
And there's my friend Siraj joining us right now. Good evening, Siraj. You also were working the polls today. Where were you, and how did that process look for you?
Good evening, Christine. I was at a church on campus, and I'm sorry I missed her name, but similar to the individual who. Nicole, sorry.
I'm bringing different friend groups in to chat with us this evening.
Sure.
Obviously, being a friend with Christine is like the best thing in the world.
Oh
but I had the similar experience as Nicole about at 6:17 a.m. this morning. Before the polls opened at 6:30, they were like, "Hey, FYI, we're going to the paper check-in," and everyone's face was just kind of like, okay. Good thing we did the video training on Sunday afternoon. So I think we handled it pretty seamlessly. It probably took half an hour to be like, okay, how do we do this? What are we doing? And then explaining that to the voters, because then that required like an alphabet split versus any voter going to any iPad. So we just added a little bit of time, but nothing too crazy.
Well, it's good. It's good to know that I know people were very nervous in here when we got that news as well, that there was going to be a delay, but it's good that that backup system is in place, and it seemed like both of you guys were trained very, very well and had very similar experiences despite being at different polling locations.
Yeah.
All right, I don't want to take too much of your time. I know you've got some news to watch, maybe some dinner to eat, because it was a long day for you guys. So I appreciate you being here with me this evening. I'm going to start another Zoom call and bring our Colleen Marshall in to discuss more on what is happening here in Ohio. Thank you, Nicole and Siraj. I really appreciate it.
Sure.
Thanks, Christine.
All right, we got Colleen back. What's going on?
Hey.
My friends were giving me
the poll worker rundown.
Exactly.
You know, my mom was always a poll worker.
Oh,
every year. Yeah, she loved election night. She always got a new dress.
That's awesome. My mom just moved to Columbus, and I don't know if that was on her agenda, but obviously being of retirement age, I very strongly discouraged her from doing it this year, but maybe
yeah, this might not be the good year to start out if you are in a high risk category.
Exactly.
Boy, an exciting night though. We've been talking to Dan Perlman, who is at the election headquarters, and behind him we see all the cars rolling in from the poll workers dropping off the election results as we're waiting for all the votes to be counted here in Ohio. You know, earlier, Christine, you and I talked about the city issue 2 that would create the Citizen Review Board. That is still winning, just like it was earlier tonight, about 4-1.
Yeah,
I think people are surprised by that margin, don't you?
Yes, absolutely. And I just talked to Sean a few minutes ago, and he moved from downtown up to the FOP Lodge there off of Cleveland Avenue, or just outside of 270. And he says that he's going to be talking to the FOP president about this passage. And I was just curious. I want to hear from Mr. Farrell, right? That's correct, right?
Yeah.
About what his thoughts on it though, because it just did so overwhelmingly pass. So maybe
Yeah, Keith Farrell. Yeah, of course, the FOP took a position that this was not the time and this wasn't maybe the right proposal for the city because it is a permanent change to the city charter without anyone knowing what it means. We still don't know who will make up the board, how many people, who will appoint them, how long they'll be on there. Will they have subpoena power? Do they get to override the police department? Are they an advisory board? Who's going to pay for it? There are so many unanswered questions about what this citizen advisory board will look like. But we do know citizens really do want some kind of a change, not just here, but there have been calls for police reform all across the country.
Absolutely, Colleen. Anything else surprising you tonight? It's anywhere from Ohio all the way here across the nation.
Well, some of the races here in Ohio ended just like we thought they would. Jim Jordan, the incumbent in the 4th Congressional District, reelected. Steve Stivers, the Republican incumbent in the 15th Congressional District, reelected. Joyce Beatty, the Democrat in Ohio's 3rd District, reelected. And it looks like Troy Balderson is ahead in his district in the 12th. That is the one congressional district here in central Ohio that we thought the challenger, in this case it's a Democrat, Elena Scherer, might have a chance, but it looks as if she's going to not overtake Balderson in that district that's been Republican for decades now. Of course, it was held by John Kasich and then by Pat Tiberi and now by Troy Balderson.
Colleen, different states being called tonight. Let's take a look at these presidential results here. Let me refresh the page. I don't think there's actually been an update as far as Electoral College numbers here in a while. 131, former Vice President Biden has with 98% going to the president right now, or not 98%, excuse me, 98 Electoral College votes here. So looking at Ohio, and it looks like the lead is widening for the president at this point. We're waiting right now for some of our political pundits to join us, and we're going to do a Zoom call with them as well. I see Mike there. We are waiting for his counterpart to come up here in just 1 minute. What are you hearing, Colleen, from across the state at this point? From, I know your sources. You've been texting away, I'm sure.
Well, I think that there's almost agreement that it's probably going to go to Donald Trump, but no one is surprised by that. The president carried the state by 8 points. Some polls had showed Joe Biden being much more strong than anybody counted, but I don't think he's going to be strong enough to overtake the president here in Ohio. That would have been an upset for him if he got it. I think people are really keeping an eye out. They're waiting for Minnesota, waiting for Wisconsin, seeing what's going to happen in Michigan. Some of those states that the president took by a much smaller margin last time around, Joe Biden is counting on. But again, those polls were showing Biden ahead here. And Christine, as we have been saying, those polls, we couldn't rely on them the last time. Not sure if we can rely on them tonight.
Yeah, it does not seem like it at this point, but we still have a lot of votes to go, Colleen. And
okay.
Thank you so much for being with us
You
this
are
evening.
welcome.
I really appreciate it.
I'll check back with you later.
Yes, thanks, Call. All right, we are still waiting. We have Mike Gonadakis here, our Republican pundit. He will be with us here in just a few minutes, but we are waiting for his Democratic counterpart, and he will hopefully join us here in a few minutes so we can chat with them, have a lively conversation there. So in the meantime, let's take a look at some of the numbers that we are seeing on NBC4i.com. If Mike wouldn't mind standing by for us, we appreciate you being here, Mike, but we'll just wait a few more minutes right now. So let's take a look here at the numbers that Colleen and I were talking about. This is NBC4i.com right now. At the very top of the page, you can see the Electoral College votes, 131 to Vice President Biden. Right now, 98 to the president. Looks like the lead in Ohio for President Trump is getting bigger. He has nearly 52% of the votes so far. Joe Biden with 47%. These are the AP totals at this point. If you scroll down, you can take a closer look at them here. And then we have the U.S. House districts for the state of Ohio in order by district, going 1 all the way down to 16 here. We have the Ohio Supreme Court races that you guys can take a look at as well. So yeah, different things happening throughout the state of Ohio tonight. NBC4i.com is your place for that. I'm getting a message to from Dan Perlman, and he is waiting here at the Board of Elections in Franklin County. He is saying that 10:15 is going to be about the time that they will be giving an update on the results there. Let's scroll through some more races here, and I'll give me a second to chat with We will have Dan Perlman here in just a few minutes. As right now, we are going to scroll through some of the U.S. representative district races that have been called this evening as we wait to hear from Dan. Looks like he has Franklin County Board of Elections spokesperson Aaron Sellers. They are giving an update on what they are seeing at the Board of Elections right now. Dan, you let me know when you're ready to go, and we will take you. All right, Dan needs a few more minutes, so we're going to scroll through some more of these races that have been called here in the state of Ohio. Dan, I'm going to come straight to you, and I want you just to intro it just a little bit. We are scrolling through some of our U.S. House of Representative district races that have been called and have not been called quite yet this evening as we are waiting for Franklin County Board of Elections spokesperson Aaron Sellers to give an update on what they are dealing with at the Board of Elections this evening. We saw from Dan not too long ago, probably about an hour on the broadcast side of things, showing us the cars and cars of ballots and votes to be counted here in Franklin County, Ohio's largest county, and he is waiting getting an update in just a few minutes from the spokesperson from the Board of Elections. They did have some issues this morning, as you heard from our interviews with our poll workers just a few minutes ago, but they say they quickly got those resolved. So I think Dan will be ready here in just a few short seconds. I'm ready, Dan. All right, guys, Dan is ready, and you can see him there outside the Franklin County Board of Elections. He is joining us right now with spokesperson Aaron Sellers. We'll let Dan take it away from here.
All right, Christine, thank you very much. Obviously, we've been out here all day talking with elections officials about how things are going throughout the day. I can tell you just within the last couple of hours or so, we've been watching the poll workers bring the ballots back here to the Board of Elections. I want to bring in Aaron Sellers, the spokesperson for the board, just to check in and see how things are going out this hour. Point blank, Aaron, how are things looking right now?
Things are going well. Before I came out, I think we were at about 44% of our precincts, voting locations that have come back in, and they're continuing to come in. Probably be through about 11:30 is the typical flow.
Safe to say things are running smoothly at this hour. Do you expect that to continue throughout the night?
Yeah, things this evening have been very smooth. We really had no issues with closing down of any machines. There were no lines at any of the polling locations that took any time to work through. So things are going very smoothly.
Timeline-wise, you and I talked yesterday. You said probably around 2 o'clock in the morning you're going to have all of your votes here at Franklin County.
Yeah. I mean, we're using a base point of 16, and at 2 o'clock was when we got it done. And I think so far, I think we may be on target for that.
Aaron, are there any adjustments you guys have had to make this year as compared to years previous, given the fact that we've had such a high number of early votes and absentee votes? Has that made it challenging or difficult for precinct officers coming in this evening?
Obviously we had a pretty large absentee vote that happened prior to Election Day. It'll be interesting to see what the final numbers are. I know in 16 we had a 70% turnout in the county, so we're all interested to see what that final number is going to be, if it is a little bit higher. But so far this evening it's been very smooth.
Which I guess is a juxtaposition compared to what we saw earlier this month, where we had 49,000 absentee ballots that went out to the wrong addresses, and then this morning, of course, we had voters who had to be checked in by pen and paper. So the county has not been without hiccups. What would you say to folks who would criticize Franklin County and how it's handled things so far?
Well, I mean, running elections sometimes can be difficult, and it's, in a large county, there's a lot of things that are going on and a lot of moving pieces. And I will say that the staff has done a fantastic job here in Franklin County, and certainly we'd like to thank our partners at the Secretary of State's office. But there were certainly a couple of hiccups in the road. But when we had some adversity, we certainly came through and tried to resolve the problem to the best of our ability. This morning, obviously, we would have loved to have been able to use our electronic poll books, but we decided early this morning that it was best to go with paper poll books, because we knew 100% that we would be able to do that properly.
With regard to those 49,966 ballots, obviously you wanted those replacement ballots to come back here. How many of them have been returned as of right now, and how many old ballots are you counting in their place?
Well, I don't know the exact number as of right now, because obviously things are still coming in. I know yesterday that we were, I think, about 71% of that universe being sent back with the second replacement ballot. So those, that 71% included people that came here to vote, if they wanted to come in person to vote, or to mail in that second replacement ballot. So I think, as I've said, that number will continue to go up.
Thank you very much, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, Christine, as you. Thank you very much, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
All right, thanks, guys.
Early on in this election period from the Board of Election, but right now they say things, again, running smoothly. Back to you.
I think I was muted. Hey guys, how are things looking for you this evening? Carrie McCarthy and Mike Gondadakis coming in. Mike from the Republican Party, as you can see, with his Trump-Pence paraphernalia behind him, and Carrie from the Democratic Party. Guys, what are your first thoughts about what is happening here on election night?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think the map, as you see it today, looks very much like it did in 2016, and it's going to come down to 4 states right now. That's Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Arizona. all of which are trending towards Joe Biden. And if he wins those +1, it'll be a big day for Biden and Harris.
Mike, I always love having you on. You show your expressions on your face before we even get to you.
Thanks. I have deep respect for Kerry. He's a great man, great husband and father, but he's wrong on this one. I will tell you, for the past 6 months, we've heard how it's a doom and gloom for President Trump. He's not going to win Ohio. He's going to lose all these states. He's crushing it in Florida. He's crushing it in Ohio. He's up over 200,000 votes now in Ohio. He won Trumbull County by 10 points, more than he beat Hillary. And the results are still coming in Ohio. We heard that he was going to lose the women vote. He was going to lose the African-American vote. He's going to lose this, that, and the other. He's winning everything. He's doing great in Ohio. He's doing great in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. It's too early to call the overall election, but he's won Ohio, and it looks like he's doing really well in these other states, North Carolina as well. Things are looking
He
great.
hasn't flipped, I mean, he hasn't flipped one state from 2016, and he barely won in 2016.
But he
in those
won
4 states.
Yeah,
Right.
he doesn't
Yeah,
need to
sure.
flip a state. He just needs to win the states.
Right.
He doesn't
That's
need to flip
exactly
a
right.
state.
So it's going to be a long night, and it's going to come down to the wire. There's no doubt about that.
You think we'll have results tonight, guys?
No, I do not think we'll have results tonight. I think Pennsylvania is going to take a long time to count. I think, Arizona's coming in quick, which is good, but I think, the blue wall that they talk about in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, I think it'll take some time before we understand what the final tally is.
Wisconsin and Michigan, I personally believe will be called tonight, as well as Arizona for President Trump. But Pennsylvania will not be called tonight, and there'll be too many mail-in ballots to call it. So it'll look really good for President Trump at the end of the night when we all go to bed at whatever time that may be. But we can't officially call it because of Pennsylvania.
Okay. Across the state this evening, any district races surprising you? Anything from at the U.S. congressional level all the way to the state house in those districts as well?
Yeah, no real surprises in congressional districts. Congressional District 1 looks like it's probably our closest race with a slight lead going to the incumbent, Steve Shabbat. But, I think the House races at the state legislative level, there seem to be some interesting races developing and some potential upsets there with some houses changing hands from Republicans to Democrats, flipping some seats, it looks like possibly tonight. And then the other thing that's interesting at the statewide level is the Supreme Court races. There's been two Supreme Court races that are in contention tonight. One looks like it's trending towards the Democrat Jennifer Brunner, but there's still some votes to be cast, so we don't know what the final outcome will look like. But there's definitely going to be, it seems, some change in some House seats and potentially one Senate seat in the state legislature.
Yeah, you know what? Believe it or not, I agree with Kerry. I think the Democrats will pick up some seats in the Ohio House, maybe one in the Ohio Senate. Franklin County Republicans are doing a terrible job here, unfortunately for me. I got to be honest. Kerry's party is kicking butt and taking names in Franklin County, and that's a reflection on our failed leadership at our county party level, but different issue, different day. The Supreme Court right now, Justice Kennedy's going to get reelected. As Kerry said, French is down, the incumbent, to Jennifer Brunner, the former Secretary of State. So we're gonna have to count the votes, but we might have a split in those. But the big surprises, there's no surprise really in the congressional races. They're gerrymandered districts. The guys are supposed to win and gals that have the seats currently. So we'll see. The Republicans will still maintain control of the Ohio legislature at the end of the night, but the margins will shrink.
Do you think so? The Ohio Supreme Court certainly something that everybody needs to watch. I don't think people understand the importance of that. Can you guys speak to the importance of either retaining or changing those seats? Actually, I'm going to stand by. I'm going to dip into our broadcast real quick if you guys wouldn't mind answering that question when I come back here.
Sure.
Eye on the numbers as far as Ohio is concerned. You're crunching those numbers. What are you seeing tonight?
All right, we've been crunching, and we talked about the early vote and the early Democratic vote, sometimes 2-1, sometimes in some areas 3-1. This was 2016. This is what we told you early on. Donald Trump won by 8%. And the question was, could Franklin County and Joe Biden turn some of these counties close that were pink into blue? We saw that early in the early Democratic vote that we did slide up, and we moved Cuyahoga County blue, and we had Wood County blue. Let me show you what we're seeing right now as we take a look at what this map does. We've lost that. You remember, Colleen, when we talked about Delaware County? Well, now 85% of the precinct reporting, it has moved Donald Trump 51% to 46% for Joe Biden. So that blue is gone. We talked about Wood County, the county that has actually predicted the president since 1980. That was extremely blue with the early vote count. Now with 84% of the precincts reporting, it has gone to Donald Trump, 51% to 46%. We also talked about Ottawa County. Ottawa County is the one that we have dealt with as the winning presidential county since 1964, 39%. We've got 56% for Donald Trump. It is moving in the direction now with still a bunch of votes out, 82% reporting. It is moving red again.
All right. Thank you, Brad. I know you're going to be keeping an eye on that for us. Outside the big races, we're also watching the results of issue 2 right here in Columbus.
And so if passed, it would change the city charter to create a civilian review board to inspect alleged police misconduct and also create an inspector general position. Again, the results have not been called yet, but here's what is being reported now. Nearly 80% are in favor of issue 2. The rest against it. Again, we're going to keep a close eye on this and watch this throughout the night so we can get the results for you. But this is one of those races where a lot of people chimed in on and they're watching because of a lot of incidents in the country regarding racial injustice and people wanting to see some changes here.
Yeah, and we know the community was, as we see, 4-1 in favor of that, and we know it's split. The leadership in the city, the mayor has been pushing for it. The FOP has opposed it. We're going to get reaction from them coming up. Sean Lanier has been covering that story for us. That and so much more. And you can log on to NBC4i.com for continuing live coverage.
I love you, brother.
All right, guys, we are back with Mike and Carrie here, our political analysts. They were getting a little cheeky during our cut-in with the broadcast people there. What were you saying, Carrie?
Well, Mike was dancing, and I was just reminding him of the numerous clips we've seen of football players dancing and celebrating at the 10-yard line before they get into the end zone, and how embarrassing that can be.
Gosh. Oh.
True, but obviously that's not going to happen tonight because I'll be waltzing right into the end zone with President Trump. But you know, we'll let the rest of the results play out.
There are 4 key states at play, all of which are trending Biden's way, with the exception of Michigan, and Michigan has not counted any early votes. Those 4 states are going to be key: Arizona, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Those will be the absolute key. Donald Trump hasn't flipped a single state from 2016. Everything that we see tonight is exactly what we saw in 2016, with 4 very important states still outstanding.
But what doesn't make sense, Kristen, is President Trump doesn't need to flip a state. He just needs to perform the same way he did in 2016, because that's what made him president in the first place.
And what he did in 2016, as a reminder, is he won those 3 of those states by a percentage point or less. So his margin of error is very small to recreate what he did in 2016. He may do it. He may do it. But if I were you, I wouldn't be dancing just yet.
All right, gentlemen, last thoughts. I'll let Mike go first here, or Carrie, whomever. You guys can choose. Last thoughts. What will you be looking for this evening whenever you're watching for TV? What's going to pique your interest as you continue this evening watching the results come in?
For me, it'll be Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania. And I say that because I believe President Trump's going to win Wisconsin and Michigan. He's going to win Arizona. And we might not even need Pennsylvania at the end of the day. But really, I think if Carrie and I both agreed in your last segment, Pennsylvania is key. So all eyes on Pennsylvania. And let's see if President Trump can pull it out.
Yeah, I think I agree. I agree. I think
I love it. We're ending on an agreeable note.
That's right. That's right. I think it'll come down to PA.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. I know we'll see lots of you guys in the days to come, especially if this doesn't get called within the next few days. Thanks, guys, so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. All right. We love having our political pundits on. Looks like Brad Johansson's getting mic'd up behind me here. He's going to be joining us with our broadcast in just a few short seconds. Let's take a look at NBC4i.com right now with more results. Let's Let's go. All right, let's start from the beginning. NBC4i.com, your local election headquarters. Here's the website. Here's the homepage right now. You can see here's our live broadcast there. You can click it at the top or in this story right here with the live red dot. This is the page I've been keeping my eyes on all night. 2020 Ohio general and presidential election results, and that's what we're going to talk about with Brad. It looks like we've been a little bit slower, and that was predicted. Getting more electoral college votes in here. Joe Biden, former vice president, has 131 at this point. President Donald Trump with 98. Let's bring in Brad. He's our maps expert at this point to talk about what we're seeing here. Brad, do you want to talk about Ohio first or the country? It's up to you.
Let's talk about Ohio because it's going to come back into play. We talked about the early Democratic vote, sometimes 2-1, sometimes 3-1, depending on the county, depending on the precincts that we were dealing with. That movement that we talked about that Joe Biden was going to need into Delaware County happened early. That movement from Toledo, bringing that down into Wood County and some of the other counties from up top, that happened early. Could Cuyahoga County turn things blue? That happened early. We talked about the red wave that would come back because of the on-day voting. Now with 84%, that was the last number that I looked at. Do you have the number that says out there where they are right now? About 84% of the vote in?
Yes, it just kind of depends on the county here. I'm trying to find it.
We're over 80% of the vote coming in, depending on where it comes in.
Yes, where can I?
Delaware County went back red.
Yes.
The counties close to Cuyahoga went back red. Mm-hmm. Wood County went back red. And the early look in Ottawa County went back red.
By several points, both of them.
It would look 84%, I believe, of the precinct reporting in Wood County. And we talked about Wood County has predicted the president since 1980, that Ottawa has predicted the president since 1964. A lot more vote still has to come in Ottawa County, but that red wave on Election Day is happening in Ohio that we're seeing that is pushing Donald Trump to look like he's going to take Ohio again.
Certainly, and let's go to the presidential race as a whole here. We haven't seen, we got a bunch of states really going earlier, and we're still seeing a lot of shaded states. Of course, they're still voting out west, but no doubt where California will go. Of course, all 55 of their votes will go to Biden. I mean, most likely.
It looks like Arizona is now going to go Biden. Most of those are mail-in votes that are coming in. Mm-hmm. It would appear that Arizona is going to go to Biden. I think one of the states that is in play right now that may go down to the very end is North Carolina. Absolutely. North Carolina is still waiting on a bunch of votes in Wake County. Wake County is right where Raleigh is. If you punch on Raleigh, you can see that, at least my last check, there were only about 43% of the precincts reporting in Wake County.
I've got 30%.
Okay.
On the AP, but of course that is.
Yeah, I had seen it at one point at 43%. Wake County is a very heavy Biden precinct, and if you're dealing with more votes, and the last I checked, it was within hundreds of votes between the two of those candidates at this point.
Very, very close. 2.64 million votes for Donald Trump, 2.59 for...
Within hundreds of votes. Yes, so we're going to go down to the very end in North Carolina. There are some predictors that believe... Here's what we're seeing again. Mm-hmm. The pollsters were wrong again, as they were in 2016. There was some predictions that would have shown that there was going to be a massive blue wave. It was going to be an early night. We were going to figure out what was going to happen, and the Democrats were going to come out in waves, not only in early voting, but also on Election Day. It's just simply not happening.
I'm just curious, as we go forward as a nation, if we have two elections in a row where the polls are dramatically kind of incorrect. I know a lot of people they have cell phones, they have unlisted numbers. I don't answer on my cell phone numbers that I don't recognize. So polling is getting more difficult and more difficult. So I wonder what the solution is at this point.
Well, they haven't figured out the solution in 4 years because they said they corrected that in 2018. They believed that they were in the right spot now in 2020. It's obviously off. I remember talking to the head pollster at Emerson College, leading one of the preeminent polls. And he says, if we were as wrong as we were, it would go this way or that way. And I said, usually on the last week, we're going to find one or two events, situations that will come up that you see as a pollster. What would you anticipate in this last week? And he definitively said to me, if the COVID numbers across the country go up in the last week, Joe Biden will be your next president. We saw a massive wave of COVID-19 come out in the last week, which would give the pollsters every indication that is the preeminent situation that voters want to hear about. And they're going, you know what? Can't deal with this president anymore. We're going to have to go another way. These COVID numbers are up. It simply is not happening. He says if they went down, Donald Trump would be the president one more time. You remember when we talked, an hour ago?
Yeah.
I said, do you know this 4,200 number that we've just broken in Ohio?
Yes.
It's kind of on the back burner.
Absolutely.
Because we're not talking about that. We're talking about something else because there is COVID fatigue. The pollsters believed that these people were voting on COVID. Apparently, in a lot of cases, they are not.
It's interesting that you said that because I was reading some of the Facebook comments, and you got to take them with a grain of salt because a lot of passionate people comment on Facebook, and they were kind of yelling at us for talking about COVID. But you guys, we set a new record today for cases. We are going to be talking about it. The governor was talking about it on the national broadcast today. We're going to be talking about it. So the COVID fatigue and it being on the back burner, I mean, we've got tangible comments. They're probably coming in right now. I'm not reading them, but we're going to talk about it.
Here's the interesting thing as you say that, what pops into my brain is listening to Donald Trump standing at the podium and saying, all the media saying COVID, 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 COVID. And maybe there are a ton of voters out there, apparently a ton of voters out there, who simply don't care what the COVID numbers are right now. That just may be the truth.
I mean, it definitely seems like it. I want to take a look at, I pulled up this Georgia race because everyone was saying, oh, Georgia's going to flip. Maybe Georgia's going to flip. That is not the case.
Not even close.
Evening. Not even close. 55.3% of the vote going to President Donald Trump right now. 43% to Joe Biden.
There were many who believed that that was probably number one on the list that may flip.
Yeah, not happening tonight unless we see.
No, there is no unless. It's not happening.
Not happening tonight. All right, guys, we're going to check in with our reporters who are out in the field. Brad Johansson, thank you so much as always. As we were talking, looked like President Trump picked up a few more Electoral College votes. He now has 108 to Joe Biden's 131. So that's an update for us.
We'll see you at 11.
All right, thanks, Brad. See you later. All right, guys, let's take a look at this map here as we prepare. We're going to go to Danielle Grossman. She is first here. Let me get her pulled up, and we will chat with her. We'll leave you right here with the map. All right, let me find Danielle here. Just stand by for me, everyone. There's Matthew. Hey, Matthew, thank you for joining us this evening. You just spoke to the representative. What did the Congresswoman have to say about her victory?
Yeah, so the first question I asked her, Christine, was kind of what her reaction was when they called the race as early as they did. And she said that it was a little bit of relief and a little bit of surprise, not so much at the result because she was expected to win this race. And again, they called it right at about 7:45. But she said that the primary race was called so late, it was one of the last races to be called, that you never really know what to expect. So she was very excited. She said she's ready to get back to work for the state of Ohio and ready to get back to Washington and get her feet back on the ground there.
You're in downtown tonight. Any activity going on, or is it still quiet there? I know Sean Lanier was there for us a little bit earlier, but we want to...
Yeah, no, everything is pretty quiet right now. Not a whole lot going on. Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, she was just watching the results back at her home this evening. She was out at a couple of get out and vote events earlier this afternoon and doing some last minute pushing to get voters to the polls. But she was at home. She said out of concern for the public safety and her health and things like that, that she was just taking it easy tonight. So yeah, for the most part, all things kind of quiet here in downtown Columbus right now. We know a lot of people are probably posted up in front of their local television and news stations trying to get those numbers as they come in.
Absolutely, Matthew. Hey, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We will see you here in just a few minutes at 11 o'clock on the broadcast side of things. We want to bring in Danielle Grossman here. Let me get her on the phone. Matthew, I thank you again.
Thank you, Christine. Have a great night.
All right, guys, stand by for me. Got to give Danielle Grossman a call on the phone here, and then we will hear from her as well. All right, good evening, Danielle. We are getting ready to talk to you. I see you're still at a precinct there. What are you guys hearing and seeing tonight?
Hey, Christine. All right, so we are here at Whetstone Community Center. And as you can see, we are right by the doors. Obviously, things are closed right now, but some of these election results are posted. I'm going to show them to you in just a second. So you can see these long strips of paper right here, and it shows us some of the results that we have so far at this particular location. So if you can zoom in right here, Dan, we can show some of the people watching here. Like right here, you can see the presidential race, 130 people for Biden and 105 for Trump. And obviously each set of these papers is a different amount of people voting on a different machine in here. But it's also signed off, you can see right down here, by those polling volunteers who were working this polling location earlier today, saying that all of these election results are true, and they hereby certify that the above results are true and accurate amount to the ballots counted today. So this is just for one polling location, but if you're curious about the polling location you were at earlier today, you can head over to that location, and they should have these results posted on the doors like this, which is very interesting. And something we saw some voters come back to see the results. They actually came out and voted way early this morning. Now, something very interesting, they said that the curbside voting, Christine, it has gone up substantially this year. And obviously they think that's because of COVID-19 concerns. A lot more people don't want to leave their car, and they wanted to vote in the comfort of their own vehicle. So we were at another location earlier, and they saw over 35 people doing curbside voting compared to 1 or 2 the last presidential election. Now, right now, it's very quiet, but early this morning at a lot of the polls, there were lines out the door. People were waiting for hours to go cast their ballot. Some people said they didn't mind, though, because I'm sure a lot of you have been outside. It was a beautiful day.
It really was.
Perfect day to go voting. They say they took about 700 votes. 700 people they saw early this morning, 2,000 people total for the day. So a substantial amount of them was before 9 a.m. And a lot of people were pleased with the process. Obviously, there was a little bit of a hiccup, but besides that, everything went pretty smoothly across polling locations in Ohio. After 10 a.m., a lot of the people got through pretty quickly. They said they would have to wait more than 15 minutes. Some people walked straight through the door. And I did talk to some of these voters, and they said they believe that a lot of these employers have been working with all of these employees so they could get out early and vote today. But overall, it seems like everyone made their voice heard, casted their ballots today, especially with that increased amount of absentee ballots that we had over the past few weeks, Christine.
Danielle, I just want to ask you, kind of person to person, this is your first presidential election here in Ohio, a big swing state. I know you were in Louisiana, where the vote can be a little bit more predictable. What did you think of this election cycle, and what surprised you the most? But you really didn't even get the full brunt of it because of COVID, so it was interesting. We didn't get as many visits and campaigns as we normally even would.
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know, I've been all over. I lived in South Dakota. Louisiana, like you said, is a predominantly red state. Now here, I expected things to be a little bit different, obviously. You know, we didn't have as many of those campaign visits. We didn't have as many of as those rallies as we would have expected. But overall, you know, I think that we may be surprised what happens here. But, you know, I'm amazed by the amount of voters and the opinions by people and the support, you know, whether... and things like that. So people are really on top of it here. They pay attention to who's running for what race, which I really appreciate here. And they really take it very seriously in this state, Christine.
That's awesome, Danielle. Good to hear from you. Thank you very much. All right, we'll see you here at 11 o'clock in just a few minutes, guys. All right, Eric Halperin is up next. Going to give him a quick call here. Danielle, as you heard, was talking about the poll workers there. We checked in at the top of the hour with a few poll workers as well, talking about that democratic process and really how, you know, they said in their words, just smooth going for them. So let's check in with Eric Halperin. He is in Westerville. Eric, you got me?
I do, Christine.
I'm good, Eric. Thank you for joining us. How are things there? Quiet, loud? It's just a little bit different since you can't be in the party room this evening.
A lot different, and because of that, it is a lot quieter. Earlier on, right after polls closed, we heard from the state Republican Party Chairman Jane Timken. That was the first speaker of the night. There's only been one more speaker since then, and that was Senator Rob Portman. He came out about an hour ago. It was after President Trump's numbers started trending in a more favorable direction for the president here in Ohio. Then Portman came out and talked to the crowd here, and then the stream to the other rooms here as well.
Hey, Eric, we can't hear you that well. Would you mind turning up the volume or asking your photographer to potentially turn up the volume on your microphone there? We're not being able to hear you very well.
They're not hearing the microphone well. You mind boosting it up a little bit? Is that any better, Christine? I just moved the microphone closer.
Not so much yet, but I'll give you a few seconds here and we will talk about that. I think I got you better now, Eric.
Okay.
Oh, now I got you. All right, Eric, tell us a little bit about, if you wouldn't mind, those people who came out and spoke to the crowd there in Westerville.
Yeah, so the first speaker of the night was Chairman Jane Timken of the state Republican Party. She came out right after the polls closed, saying she was cautiously optimistic about how things were going to go for the Republicans here in Ohio. And then about an hour ago, Senator Rob Portman came and spoke. He was the only other speaker that we've heard from here tonight, and he came out after the president's numbers started trending in a better direction for the president here in Ohio.
All right, Eric, I don't want to keep you too long because I know you have the 11 o'clock broadcast coming up here. What will, who will we hear from then, and what do you plan on telling the people on the broadcast side of things? What can they look forward to?
Well, we're sort of on standby on who we're going to hear from next, but we have been following that 15th Congressional District race, which will go into more detail at 11 o'clock between Congressman Steve Stivers and challenger Joel Newby. The AP declared that race earlier tonight. The last I checked, Stivers was up by more than 20 points, and so we'll go into more of that. And I talked to Stivers tonight, and so more of that conversation at 11 too.
All right, Eric, thank you so much. I really appreciate it for being out there all evening for us. I know it's a little bit of a strange situation that you guys have going on there, but well, I do have one more question. I want to ask you the same question that I asked Danielle. It's your first election covering Ohio here in a swing state. I know you were in the New England area, certainly more of a blue stronghold. What was this like for you, being in Ohio for the first time during an election cycle?
Well, for the last presidential election, I was in West Virginia, which went very strongly for President Trump, and then I moved up to the northeast there, where, as you mentioned, has a very strong Democratic hold there, and again has tonight. And I'm hearing from friends across the country tonight, texting me, asking me, what it's like being in a state that is more up in the air. And so they definitely realize that, and it's definitely, you feel like you're following a really, really important race.
All right, Eric, hey, thank you so much for being with us. Good perspective from you. You've kind of covered it all at this point. Red states, blue states, and now definitely a swing state. So we'll hear from Eric here on NBC4 at 11 coming up here in about 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Eric. All right, guys, let's take a look. We just got word that the race incumbent Troy Balderson has won his congressional district. Let's get this graphic up for you right now. Yes, Troy Balderson declared the victor in the District 12 race with 55% of the votes. His opponents, Elena Shearer and John Stewart, Elena getting about 42%, and then the Libertarian there getting around 3% of the vote. So Troy Balderson, incumbent, will be going back to Washington for the 12th district. Let's scroll down. Let's take a look at some of the other races that have been called at this hour coming up here in just a few minutes. NBC4 at 11 will start with Colleen Marshall and Carrie Charles, as well as all of our other anchors that we have here in-house this evening, and all of the reporters that you just heard from as well. So here's a look at the Civilian Review Board, the Columbus Charter Amendment, overwhelmingly seeing votes for yes at this point. 77% of the votes there saying yes to establish the Civilian Review Board here in Columbus. Next race, this one was called quite a bit ago. Stivers versus Newby. Stivers winning handily with nearly 63% of the votes. Newby with 37% there. Next race, another one that was called early, Joyce Beatty winning also handily with nearly 74% of the votes over challenger Republican Mark Richardson. So Joyce Beatty, the incumbent, winning there as well. We just showed you District 12 here, but I want to show you again Troy Balderson just moments ago declared the victor there in that race. Another one, District 7, Bob Gibbs, the incumbent as well, winner for his House seat, District 7 here in Ohio, as well as Bob Latta from the 5th District, winning handily over his Democratic opponent as well. Jim Jordan wins his district handily as well, with nearly 68% of the votes there. Another Republican, District 2, Brad Wenstrup, will be elected again, winning with more than 60% of the votes there in District 2. Final one for Central Ohio this evening. This one was called very early. Bill Johnson wins again in District 6 with 76% of the votes there. Let's take a look back to the Electoral College map that we have here. Similar to the last time that we saw it, looks like Vice President Biden picked up a few more Electoral College votes there. 135 for him, 108 for President Donald Trump. Big states still yet to call it. We have Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, of course, Arizona. People are waiting on that as well. Let's take a look. I've not looked at Texas, not as close as they were predicting. 51% of people at this point voting for the president, and 47% of the vote going to Donald Trump. Go back to NBC4i.com and I'll show you exactly if you're looking for a specific race that isn't the presidential election. This is NBC4i.com. You can watch our live broadcast right here, and then you can get the 2020 Ohio general and presidential election results right here. Top story on our website right now. And you can see President Donald Trump, as the votes are coming in, pulling away with Ohio, 53% of the votes. He has 45% going to Joe Biden right here. Scroll down, you can see we have a search bar right here, so you can click whatever race you would like to see and type in the race you want to see there. Type in whatever district or name, and it will come up for you. We have the U.S. House districts in order there, as you can see, the majority of which have been called at this point. Just scrolling through here. And you can take a look. If you want to take a look more slowly, go to NBC4i.com. It's the top story on our website right now that you can take a look at those. Now, other things we are watching is the Ohio Supreme Court. Those races have not been called quite yet. We have Kennedy versus O'Donnell and Bruner versus French there. Those have not yet been called. About 80%, 79% of precincts reporting at this time. Then we have Ohio representatives here in different districts, 17, 18, 19, 20. It looks like not many of these races have been called quite yet either. Again, this is NBC4i.com. And it's the top story on our page right now. And we have a search feature at the very top as well. So I'm going to have you, I'll leave you on this map here. Just 1 second, guys, before we get a reset. And we are going to let you here on social media watch the first few minutes of the broadcast so you can see the reports from our anchors and reporters in the field as well. All right, local news here, NBC4 at 11. We'll start here in about 25 seconds. We'll keep this map up for you guys until then. And for now, thank you so much for watching. Like I said, we'll leave the first few minutes of the broadcast up here in just a few minutes. Then we will rejoin at 11:30. Thank you all so much for watching our digital broadcast this evening.
You and your family. Live from your local election headquarters, this is NBC4 at 11.
It is an election to remember in an already unforgettable year.
Ballots are being counted all across the country, and of course that includes right here in Ohio.
Good evening to you, everybody, and thanks for joining us tonight at 11. I'm Kerry Charles.
I'm Colleen Marshall. We're going to see where the candidates stand right now on the path to 270 in that presidential race. Right now, former Vice President Joe Biden has 135 electoral votes. Donald Trump in at 108.
Now, many of the swing states, they are still undecided right now. Things could change drastically in the hours ahead. We are also keeping an eye on the popular vote. President Trump lost that in 2016, and so far we are looking at right now he has 51%. There we go. 51%. I was looking at the digits there, but 51% of the vote in right now with Joe Biden at 48.
And again, this is without some of the safest states for Democrats fully in play. That includes California and Washington. And these totals will continue to change all throughout the night. We can tell you here in Ohio, voters are looking like they will give the state's 18 electoral votes to President Trump once again. He currently has a lead here, 53 to 46%.
You know, so many experts, they predicted, and we saw an early lead for Biden thanks to those early votes getting counted first. That was as expected. But as we got later into the evening, that lead, it started to shrink.
It's still too early to call and has been a popular phrase tonight as the presidential vote has been tracked across the country.
Brad Johansson knows this very well. He's been tracking the path to the White House. He joins us now with a look at the map, including Ohio. Let's begin there.
Yeah, let's talk about the state of Ohio. And we have talked about the flip-flop and the fickleness of Ohio, and yet Ohio has continued to predict the president since 1964. And we've talked about the many counties that we're dealing with in this. Take a look at this board right now. 90% of the vote in right now, 53% to Donald Trump, 45% to Joe Biden. We talked about the need out of Franklin County to go up to Delaware County. So let's go up to Delaware County and see what happened. Yes, Joe Biden did pick up some votes over Hillary Clinton, but Donald Trump picked up a huge amount of votes. Let's go up to the Rust Belt into Trumbull County. Yes, Joe Biden improved on Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump improved by about 4,700 votes to Joe Biden's 500 votes. Then we talked about Wood County. You remember Wood County? Wood County has predicted the president since 1980. Look at the numbers here. 52.92, 53.07, 45.51, 45.29. Wood County is predicting once again. And yes, Ottawa County did vote for Donald Trump, even higher than that, by 60%. They have voted for the president since 1964. That's what you're looking at in Ohio, guys.
All right, thanks so much. And we should point out that we just found out California, Oregon, and Washington all declared for Joe Biden, Idaho for the president.
It's a busy night at the Franklin County Board of Elections office as the count continues as we speak.
And NBC4's Dan Perlman is joining us now live from there. And Dan, what can you tell us about how things are going? It's been a pretty smooth day overall, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Colleen and Carrie. You know, right now, outside of the Board of Elections, things have actually gotten a little quiet. Of course, there's a lot of work going on as they count the ballots inside. So I want to bring in Aaron Sellers with the Board of Elections. Aaron, you and I were just talking. Right now, 74% of the precincts have reported. How are things going inside? Are things running smoothly at this hour?
Yeah, so things are running very smoothly. We've got 74%, and they're still obviously downloading some information, some precincts that have reported. We've got one location left, which is our largest precinct, is a 9 precinct location. We're waiting on that one, and we'll have everything in.
All right.